The courtroom was supposed to be a sanctuary of justice, a place where words, not brute force, resolved disputes. Yet here, amidst the hallowed walls that echoed with history, a different kind of battle was unfolding. The white cop, his face a mask of barely restrained disdain, stepped forward. He towered, carrying the weight of authority that crackled like an electric charge around him. His hand clamped onto Ava's arm, the black woman who sat clad in a navy suit, her posture erect, unyielding under the scrutiny of 100 eyes. It was like watching a matchstick thrown onto a gasoline spill. "Sit down, or I'll make you," his voice boomed, a thunderclap of control intended to cow its listener into submission. Ava's eyes met his, a clash of steely resolve against blind aggression. Her lips barely moved, yet the words sliced through the tension like a blade. "Try me." In those 8 seconds, the world transformed. The serenity of justice shattered as her knee struck a deliberate, calculated movement honed through years of training. The courtroom gasped collectively, a single inhalation of disbelief as the mighty fell, crumpling to the polished wooden floor. This officer had underestimated his match, a Navy SEAL whose very life had been a testament to survival against insurmountable odds. Confusion flickered in his eyes, swiftly replaced by pain and shock as his grip slackened, releasing its vitriolic hold. All eyes riveted on the scene, the room silent save for the rhythmic clatter of a gavel that seemed powerless to restore order. This was not a mere altercation, it was a statement and explosive declaration against the systemic chains that sought to bind her. In just 8 seconds, a destiny was rewritten, an unjust narrative halted mid-spun thread. The courtroom buzzed, whispers spreading like wildfire through a forest dry with the kindling of racial and gender tension. Ava stood unflinching, her heart a tempest beneath the stoicism of her uniform facade. Her training had taught her to stand straight in the face of a storm, but it could not have prepared her for the essay battle where the enemy wore a badge of protector yet acted as predator. "Order!" the judge barked, his voice a gavel of another kind, desperately trying to assert control over a scene now dancing in the realms of chaos. But this was a new chapter, penned not in quiet deliberation but in the bold strokes of action. The officer's downfall echoed the danger of power wielded carelessly, and as he was assisted away, the realization dawned that there would be repercussions far beyond these walls. Ava's calm exterior belied the storm inside a tempest born of countless injustices suffered quietly, now seeking release in the form of justice re-earned. Her resolve was an unyielding fortress, built stone by stone through grit and determination. Her defiance stood not just for herself, but for many a shield thrust into the heart of a system that often weighed bias over fairness. Through the courtroom's vast silence, Ava's voice alone remained a beacon, a solitary cry against the muted acceptance of oppression. As the officer's shameful ejection underscored the day's irony, Ava knew the fight was far from over. Yet she stood vindicated, a lone voice amplified by the silent applause of those quietly witnessing a transformation. The consequence of this confrontation was far-reaching, a ripple through the pond of public consciousness that would not easily be quelled. For those 8 seconds had done more than tip a singular balance. They had illuminated a path to justice, unswayed by prejudice. Ava's defiance was a signal flare, guiding countless observers toward a new understanding that justice must truly be for all. As the courtroom slowly reclaimed its erstwhile dignity, the whispers turned from shock to conviction. This was a small victory, yet significant, a reminder that even in the face of formidable authority, integrity and justice could rise. Ava retrieved her composure, adjusting her suit with deliberate calm, each motion a reminder of who she was, a woman of strength, a SEAL by choice, a fighter by necessity. Her presence filled the room not by size, but by indomitable spirit. Audience worldwide sat captivated, their comments pouring into the digital ether like a flood of affirmations and righteous anger. "That cop got what he deserved," one typed furiously. Another mused. Finally, someone stood up to them. Each comment added fuel to a growing Furia movement, demanding not just justice, but accountability on all levels. For Ava, this was not the end. It was the start of something far greater, a clarion call to the world that echoed beyond the confines of that courtroom. She had stood firm, a vivid lightning flash, in the stormiest of clouds, and now it was time for others to follow. The scene was set, the players revealed, and the narrative was now irrevocably in motion. With a ripple of whispers flowing over the courtroom, Ava took her rightful place in the center of this unfolding drama. Her presence was commanding, not just because of her composure but because of the story that lay beneath her crisp Navy suit. A Navy SEAL, a warrior shaped by discipline and grit, she was a living testament to defying the odds. The room quieted, every eye transfixed, as her unassuming identity peeled back to reveal a history of resilience and strength. Ava had never intended to become the center of such a spectacle. Her life, marked by service and sacrifice, was one of hard-won respect and silent battles fought in shadows most never saw. Those 8 seconds each tick of time slowing in her memory had been unplanned, an instinctive response honed through years of arduous training. Yet here she was, the veil lifted on her past and present, standing as proof that beneath the surface of civility lay an untamed force prepared to defend itself against all injustice. Outside the courtroom, her fame began to spread like wildfire, transferring person to person, story to story, igniting a narrative not often heard of a black woman who had earned her stripes in a predominantly male and overwhelmingly white realm. Her evolution from small-town girl to highly trained operative was extraordinary, but it wasn't without scars, both seen and unseen. These were the experiences that defined her more than her medals, more than the citations of bravery. Reporters, scenting a story that was bigger than the incident itself, clamored for interviews. Many reached out to colleagues and comrades, hoping to piece together the puzzle of this remarkable woman. Who was Ava beyond the uniform? What steel lay in her spine that resisted bending, even under the threat of law and order gone rogue? Yet, from where Ava stood, this trial went beyond personal biography. It was a greater narrative, one that touched on the pervasive racism and systemic disregard for justice that so many pretended didn't exist. Her own roots traced back through generations of similar defiance, each one a link in the chain of humanity's better nature striving to break free. "Wow, a SEAL, too," a lawyer murmured to her colleague, unable to peel her gaze from the woman in question. "Their recruiter must be very persuasive, or she's something else entirely." Her words whipped through the room, each ear catching a fragment of the growing mythos around Ava. Suddenly, a familiar voice cut through the din, dripping with authority, but now tinged with uncharacteristic respect. "She's the real deal, folks," rasped Hank Gibson, a retired SEAL seated in the audience, who had once been her mentor. They should have known better than to tangle with her. Ava turned her head slightly, allowing herself a brief glance toward her old comrade. Their eyes met, and a silent message passed between theme acknowledgement, recognition of battles past, and those looming ahead. In that moment, she felt the collective strength of her community lifting her up, pushing her forward. Her time and training had not just honed her physical abilities, but imbued her with an understanding of deeper truths about honor, courage, and justice. Those iron principles were why she had joined the Navy in the first place, to protect those who could not protect themselves and to fight for those abandoned to the margins. Communities across the country echoed her story through their own lives, seeing in her journey a reflection of their struggles and achievements. Her tale was their shared legacy of resilience, defiance, and ultimately, triumph. Within the bubble of the courtroom, the rhythm of legal proceedings resumed, yet the room's energy remained charged, buzzing as if anticipating the next chapter of this unfolding saga. Ava was more than the face of this conflict. She was becoming its voice, a resonant cry for fairness in a system that too often drowned out the weak, the different, the defiant. Long after the hushed conversation and stolen glances dissipated, her image lingered, engraved in the memory of all who witnessed her unmasking. Her secret was no longer hers alone. It belonged to the world now, a beacon of power, shrouded in grace, poised for the relentless battle against injustice. Despite the personal cost it exacted, Ava remained committed to the fight, to the promise that every courtroom, every corner of the world, might one day become a refuge of true justice. As the sun dipped through the large courtroom windows, casting elongated shadows on the floor that reached toward her, it seemed to foretell of a journey far from its end. Inside Ava, the storm calmed, replaced by the song of conviction, a tune only the brave dared to sing. And so Ava stood, unbroken, a symbol of unyielding spirit, ready to face whatever awaited beyond those doors, resolved to continue sharing the story they had all just begun to hear. The courtroom resumed its pace, a well-oiled machine of justice ticking with the precision of a watch, yet beneath the surface, tension simmered like a pot threatening to boil over. Ava sat stoically, every inch a disciplined warrior, even while the echoes of recent events reverberated still. It was not merely an idle pause. This moment braced for a legal reckoning, one long overdue. Word of Ava's victory against unwarranted authority began to ripple through legal and political circles. Whispered conversations behind closed doors caught wind with stunning speed, every eye watching to see how the process would unfold in this heightened climate of scrutiny. Ava's actions were courageous, undeniable, yet the focus now shifted toward the implications, both immediate and profound. Steps were taken swiftly, urgent meetings convened to address the incident in a way that would placate the public furor while restoring faith in a system on the brink of fracture. Within these chambers, decisions would shape not just public perception, but the very tenets of justice itself. The question echoing, was this an isolated event, or a symptom of a deeper rot within? A formal inquiry into the officer's conduct was announced before a packed press room, the news igniting fierce debate. Would justice be served, or would positions protect the powerful once again? The country held its breath, waiting for proof that change was possible, that voices like Ava's could catalyze systemic transformation. Summoned to testify before a newly assembled review board, Ava walked once more into the collision of personal duty and collective expectation. The room was austere, rows of chairs facing a long table behind which sat the arbiters of this unfolding drama. Behind them, banners and flags flanked the room, their presence a solemn reminder of the patriotism embedded in this quest for accountability. Her entrance was met with a respectful nod from the lead official, Judge Evelyn Monroe, a woman whose reputation for fairness preceded her. Judge Monroe's stern countenance softened ever so slightly as Ava took her seat, suggesting solidarity without words. This hearing was more than procedure. It was an opening salvo in a battle that sought to bridge the gap between regulation and reality. The initial questions were procedural, establishing context, the cold detail of dates and times. Yet beneath these formalities, tension built, each inquiry a thread seeking to unravel the incident at the heart of this inquiry. What had truly transpired in those 8 seconds? Judge Monroe leaned forward, signaling a turn in the proceedings. "Miss Jordan," she began, using Ava's full name with a gravitas befitting the occasion. "You were placed in a situation where you felt physically threatened. Can you describe your decision-making process during those moments?" Ava took a breath, the room holding it with her as she weighed her responsive delicate dance between truth and the legacy she hoped to uphold. "When he grabbed me," she began, her voice steady yet infused with an emotional edge, "I acted on instinct, trained instinct. I knew I had mere seconds to regain control of the situation. My response was defensive, not intended to harm but to protect myself." Her words hung in the air, precise and heavy, cutting through any illusion of simplicity. This was not a moment born of reflex alone, but of a lifetime spent preparing for battles she had hoped never to fight on home soil. Monroe nodded, turning to whisper briefly with the officials to her left and right. It was a motion that portended both understanding and the gravity of what this proceeding meant on a broader scale. The quiet whispers were as much a part of the process as the spoken testimony itself, a conduit of justice enacted through collective deliberation rather than unilateral decree. Ava's testimony extended beyond her own actions, shedding light on the broader issue of accountability in law enforcement. The proceedings meticulously pieced together a tapestry of facts, slowly painting a picture meant to highlight systemic inequities as much as to determine this single case's outcome. "This isn't just about one officer's actions," Ava declared in a moment of earnest conviction. "It's a reflection on how we must address those in power and ensure they wield it justly." A murmur of agreement swept through the gallery, a captured public moment resonating beyond legal constraints. For here, in this stark room of justice, lay the heart of a conversation America was finally beginning to have. The proceeding continued, diving into policies and protocols, seeking accountability where it so often slipped through procedural cracks. Ava's hope was that her testimony would be a catalyst, not merely for addressing her case, but for setting a precedent that demanded reform. As the afternoon wore on and the room's energy ebbed and flowed, it became clear that these hearings were the first chapter in a much larger story. The public, now watching intently, realized that the stakes involved more than a narrative of one woman against a flawed system. They hinted at a societal shift toward a more inclusive and equitable application of justice. Out of this crucible, a stronger framework might emerge, one where those in authority were compelled to act not from oppression but through understanding and equity. And as Ava finally stepped out into the sunlight, the doors closing behind her, she felt both the weight and possibilities of the path yet to be walked, her journey reflecting America's own march toward justice. The scene was set with the elegance of juxtaposed world zone of principles and restraint, and another simmering beneath with chaos and unchecked bias. As Ava stood outside the judicial chambers, the sunlight falling on her like a spotlight, it wasn't just a physical space she occupied but a metaphorical one, a bridge between expectation and action. The foundation of her path was built on a zealous conviction that justice was a right, not a privilege, regardless of one's skin color or gender. Yet, the reality was that her journey demanded an unyielding defense, not just in courtrooms, but in every glance that lingered too long and every bias that remained unspoken but felt all the same. The enemies she faced were insidious, often cloaked in the guise of tradition or policy, harder to confront than any tangible adversary. But stand she would, a pillar against an indifferent storm. As she walked onto the cracked pavement outside the courthouse, she was met with a sea of supporters, individuals of all colors and backgrounds, whose lives were touched by her defiance. They held signs lofted high, slogans brief but powerful: justice for all, end systemic racism, and power to the defiant. Each phrase resonated, amplifying the collective spirit she had inadvertently become a beacon for. Among the crowd, she recognized familiar faces: activists she had stood alongside in marches past, veterans who understood the unspoken bond shared through the burden they bore, and civilians who had chosen to harbor courage instead of complacency. A young black girl, eyes wide with admiration, pushed through the throng, pressing a scrap of paper into Ava's hand. On it, scrawled with unsteady yet determined handwriting, was a simple note: "Thank you for being brave." Ava's heart constricted, a rush of gratitude and a deep sense of responsibility washing over her. Here was the raw, beating heart of the movement before her, unarmored and genuine. She ducked down, locking eyes with the girl, and spoke softly yet with conviction. "You're the brave one for standing here today. Never let anyone tell you silence is the answer." Somewhere in the chaos of phones buzzing and chants rising, her phone vibrated against her hip, pulling her attention back to the electronic tether, connecting her to the world beyond this immediate struggle. It was an email, intriguing partly because of its sender, a retired rear admiral who had navigated the complex waters of policy reforms within the military. The subject line was succinct: "We need to talk." This was no mere invitation. It was a call to arms of a different sort, a reminder that her fight wasn't just in front of televised courtrooms but within the halls of policymakers. Ava's role as a defender of justice meant taking the fight wherever it needed to go, each arena as vital as the last. The admiral's words played in her mind, echoing between the tactical knowledge of the past and the strategic necessity of now. This was the ground she was forging, a battlefield of ideas and reform, as relentless and urgent as any she had ever encountered in the field. Filled with renewed purpose, she made her way through the crowd, her presence solidifying the importance of each person's role in this shared fight. Hands reached out to touch her shoulder or grasp her hand, each contact a transfer of strength and solidarity. Then, standing beneath a makeshift podium flanked by reporters, Ava addressed the crowd, her voice carrying not just over the gathering but reverberating through social media feeds across the country. "We stand here today," she began, drawing upward the powerful swell of collective voices behind her, "because justice should not be a battle fought alone. It's a cause that demands our unity and our unwavering resolve." Eyes fell upon her, some teary with hope, others determined with the fierce intensity of youthful idealism. This moment was a testament to Ava's own journey and the miles yet to go. Her strong words filled the air, entwining with aspirations of the many who had gathered, igniting a spirit that could not be easily extinguished by the weight of systemic inertia. As cameras clicked and microphones carried her message to a far larger audience, Ava knew the future belonged to those who refused to settle into numb indifference. She was their steward, not through choice alone but through the necessity of justice and the unbroken arc of history itself bending towards morality's horizon. Here, amid the clamor of defiant voices joined in singular cause, Ava felt the underpinning of change begin to shift beneath her feet. Her role was both critical and clear, to lead through the power of conviction, the strength of the past bolstering the promise of tomorrow. And so it was action met with resolve, a community pulling forward together, the seeds of resilience taking root in the fertile soil of collective will, heralding a new dawn of change. The chilly air felt sharp but invigorating as it mingled with echoes of Ava's address, the final syllables of her powerful speech dissolving into murmurs and whispered affirmations amongst the crowd. Yet, in the blink of an eye, the narrative within this microcosm of justice shifted. A piercing wail of sirens broke through the ambient harmony, their red lights flashing, casting a disorienting aura over the collective unity Ava had worked to build. The officer being escorted out earlier, now slumped against the back seat of a squad car, was a stark reminder of a system that often both protected and insulated its own. The crowd tensed, a ripple of unease washing over them as they watched the symbolism of authority being resisted and briefly unraveled. The air crackled with an electric tension, anticipation mingling dangerously with the prospect of further confrontation. Amid this turmoil, Ava held her position, instinct and experience guiding her steady as she observed the unfolding scene with trained eyes. The officer's earlier aggression had led to his collapse, his role now inverted to that of the disgraced rather than the graced. Yet, Ava felt no triumph in his fall. There was no satisfaction to be found here, only the stark truth of what unchecked power could become a truth embodied in his descent from authority to shame. As the officer was driven away, a mix of expressions crossed his face, ranging from anger to confusion, emotions rippling beneath the surface of a facade maintained too long in a fractured system. He nearly met Ava's eyes through the tinted window, but looked away, deliberately diverting his gaze as if the admission of guilt was a weight greater than any confrontation he had faced. Within those brief seconds, a broader realization winged its way through Ava's mind. This was the subtle, yet potent essence of justice, not vengeance, but accountability. To hold power meant to bear responsibility, a truth not easily swallowed by all, yet necessary if reform was ever truly to take hold. The crowd, absorbing the spectacle, now drew renewed energy from Ava's unwavering presence. They began to chant a rhythmic, powerful reminder of their purpose. Justice, justice now, echoed through the streets, a chorus weaving together countless stories with singular intent. This was more than an admonition, it was a demand. Standing firm amidst this resurgence of collective vigor, Ava felt the crowd's resolve buoying her own spirits. Her actions had sparked this reaction, stoked the flames of a movement wanting only to blaze forward. With each voice that rose in harmony, the fabric of resistance tightened, a testament to the unified will against systemic repression. Among the throng, Ava spotted James, an old comrade from her SEAL days, his presence a steadfast support much like the rest of this sea of humanity. His silent nod was a gesture of solidarity, a link to her past where fights had been fought purely for survival, now repurposed for battles of principle. Their journey paralleled, a bond fortified through trust, hardship, and shared belief in a cause greater than any single moment. The energy transmuted into action, a swell of purpose that would not be silenced. Plans unfolded, details cementing in whispered conversation and deliberate connection among activist groups that had gathered. There is work to be done. Avenues yet unexplored, paths untraveled that beckoned beneath the fevered chant of justice that lingered in the chilled afternoon air like the promise of dawn. Ava's presence had transformed this momentary cacophony into a symphony of hope and defiance, and as she looked out over the gathered masses, she knew this was but the first note in a long composition. Today, as with every significant movement, strength came not just from the louder voices but from the enduring will of those who chose to stand side by side, guided by justice, fueled by courage. In the moments that followed, Ava's path became clear as conversations turned toward actionable steps. Her role no longer solitary was part of a larger fabric being woven in real time, through expression of ideas and marshaling of resources directed toward meaningful change. This was community in action, each voice a critical element in a sonorous harmony demanding to be heard. As the crowd began to disperse, thoughts shifting from action back to life's routines, Ava felt a comfort in the realization that, like any worthy pursuit, this was a marathon, not a sprint. And they were only getting started. With renewed resolve, she turned to face the road ahead, both literally and figuratively a path marked not only by uncertainty and challenge, but also by unity, courage, and the indomitable spirit of those who had chosen to walk it with her. As the remnants of the crowd began to dissipate, Ava remained standing at the forefront of as feet shuffled away. The spirit of the movement lingered, an indelible shadow in the winter light. The air buzzed faintly, not just from retreating voices but from the tangible shift precipitated by this one gathering. A momentum had been ignited, and it showed no signs of abating. Within hours, news of the incident and Ava's subsequent emergence as a leading figure in this fight against systemic injustice spread like wildfire across platform screen by screen, post by post, an echoing call throughout the digital ether. What had seemed like a single moment had quickly evolved into a spectacle of national discourse. The courtroom's skirmish, fragmented and comprehensible in mere seconds on videos replayed millions of times, had transcended its original context, embodying a broader symbol of resistance. Online forums erupted into fierce debate, intertwining experiences, commentaries, and demands for accountability. Social media teemed with hashtags bearing Ava's name, her image transformed into avatars of defiance, a dissenting face against a churning backdrop of social unrest, powerful and clear. The narrative now belonged to the people, threading through their conversations like an unwavering stream seeking justice. Yet amid the clamor of support, Ava was keenly aware that this wasn't just a rallying cry for change, it was a personal metamorphosis. She unlocked her phone, listening to her own measured voice from a recorded interview replayed back to her. The emotions conveyed bore the weight of truth, a mirror reflecting both the struggles and the fibers of hope woven into each word spoken. "We must be relentless," she had said, her voice steady, a commitment carved into each syllable like granite. "Justice isn't a request, it's a demand steeped in the dignity of every person." As these words reverberated across waves, new allies emerged from unexpected quarters. Politicians soon found themselves at the center of their constituents' demands for transparency and reform. Petitions circulated, bearing thousands of names and futures, each signature a small pledge towards an equitable society. Among those names were stories of individuals who reached out, connecting their tales of marginalization and delivering poignant sparks of shared experiences directly into Ava's inbox. Each narrative lent a collective power to the grassroots engine, the undercurrent of support threading communities together in a solidarity welded by conviction, not convenience. One message caught her eye, entitled, "Your fight is our fight." It was a heartfelt missive from a young activist named Jordan who worked tirelessly within their local justice network. His words resonated with Ava deeply, their essence underscoring the necessity of interconnected struggles. "Your courage reminded me that silence isn't safety. It's a cage, and thanks to you, I'm breaking out." This was the energy that suffused Ava's chorea, confirmation of the resolve set into motion not just by her actions but by the shared heartbeat of collective power echoing louder than any of them could manage alone. Here was validation that the work went beyond personal anecdotes, extending into realms of actionable change transcending state lines. Amidst the chaos, she found herself fervently planning, communicating with leaders from various spheres, community organizers, legislative influencers, allies, and frontline voices, strategically piecing together a tapestry of resilient activism. Each part of this burgeoning coalition played a critical role, their synergistic efforts promising results where discord might have meant defeat. In those vivid discussions, thoughts of reform and implementation matured. Plans were laid bare, critiques honed into proposals aimed at dismantling long-standing systemic barriers one at a time. There would be difficulties, opposition mounting with every stride, but Ava steeled herself for the trials to come. She knew power shifted slowly, like tectonic plates exerting immense pressure before yielding progress, yet it was progress nonetheless. Even as this activist storm rumbled steadily towards the horizon of policy and conscious reform, Ava's thoughts slipped to the future. Who would lead these future battles when her time at the front line might pass? She envisioned the girl with the note she had met earlier, a face vivid with hope and determination, transforming into leaders whose momentum built on the path she now trod. Under the dimming sky, Ava felt the promise of this burgeoning reality, a rhythm of her pulse, aligning with the thrumming intent of ideas becoming tangible. With her well-used strength and newfound allies, the vision was not mere potential but a radiant inevitability. Justice may have been brushed into motion by one woman's defiance, but the solution thrummed within the united efforts of a battalion of voices ready to act, less alone and ever resolute. As she turned to witness the waning day, Ava understood that this was a battle they could not afford to retreat from. Together, they were armed not with malice, but hope, an explosive combination turning the tide, summarizing a call to action with a simple, yet unstoppable phrase: "We are unstoppable." The video spread like wildfire, igniting screens and conversations with an immediacy that was both exhilarating and daunting. Within hours, Ava had become a viral sensation, her actions dissected and analyzed across social media landscapes and news cycles alike. The scene in the courtroom was replayed repeatedly, a short loop of defiance and downfall, capturing the fraught intersection of race, power, and resistance. Ava watched with a strange detachment as her likeness, a fleeting image of resolve, flashed across countless devices. She saw herself in fragments: the knee strike, the officer's shock, the stunned collective intake of breath from the courtroom audience. It's a powerful montage, distilled down to the visceral realities of those 8 transformative seconds. But there was more than just a personal victory. It marked a tipping point in the broader narrative of systemic injustice. Every pixel of the video carried not only the image, but the underlying story of unyielding struggle and hope. Comments flooded in thousands of voices, both supportive and critical, each with their unique take. Finally, "Someone standing up," wrote a user, their profile adorned with emojis of resistance. "This is what happens when authority is unchecked." Another penned, incisive, and to the point. Not all reactions were supportive, of course. A hive of angry rhetoric buzzed loud and defensive, desperately clinging to old paradigms. Despite the cacophony of opinions, Ava couldn't help but feel the tremors of change beneath her feet. The video had sparked dialogues that ventured beyond Ava's singular act of defiance, probing more profound societal questions about racial bias, law enforcement accountability, and the rights of ordinary citizens to fight back against systematic oppression. News outlets picked up the viral story, eager to ride the wave of attention. Pundits debated the nuances of Ava's actions, some heralding her as a hero in the fight for racial equality, while others, their voices tinged with skepticism or overt bias, questioned her methods and her motives. These discussions amplified her actions into a national conversation, bringing to the fore issues often brushed aside or avoided altogether. In the swirl of media coverage, Ava's email and phone became inundated with requests for interviews, speaking engagements, and alliances with various activist organizations. Amid the influx of attention, Ava remained surprisingly centered, her focus on the broader mission rather than the immediate fame her actions had brought. Through the din of constant notifications, one particular message managed to grasp her attention. It came from an organization named the Justice Advocacy Network, a collaborative formed by civil rights lawyers and activists dedicated to addressing legal challenges born from systemic biases. They saw Ava's circumstances as a turning point, an opportunity to push for significant policy changes. It was a call to action that resonated deeply with her own beliefs, and she recognized this moment as a chance to leverage her newfound platform for substantial change. Ava agreed to a meeting with the network's representatives. It was half strategic assessment, half spirited discussion, as they laid out plans not just to aid her personal case but to extend the impact into long-term legal reform. They would tackle policies ensuring better training for officers, transparency in misconduct investigations, and stronger protections for citizens' rights against abuse. Meeting with the network brought clarity and direction amidst the media storm. They proposed collaboration with lawmakers and organized events to push these reforms forward. Ava's viral moment had the potential to foster tangible change, and she was determined to use it wisely. This newfound alliance fortified her resolve and provided a roadmap for the journey ahead. Among the swirling media and public discourse, Ava's personal reflections remained anchored by memories of her own ancestors' struggles and triumphs. She thought of her grandmother, a woman who had marched in civil rights protests decades prior, her actions forming a bridge to Ava's current reality. This legacy was woven into the present moment, connecting those electric 8 seconds in the courtroom to a tapestry of historical resistance. Her thoughts were interrupted by yet another flood of messages, this time from her close-knit circle of family and friends who expressed pride and support, in equal measure a reminder that she wasn't in this alone. Their encouragement provided another layer of armor, ensuring that amidst this whirlwind of public attention, Ava never lost sight of her foundational mission, to seek justice, no matter the personal cost. And so, with a cell phone at rest in her pocket, blinking notifications quieted for now, Ava stepped out onto the street, now feeling somehow different. Not from the change in physical space, but from this new awareness, this step taken into a world where her voice, amplified many times over, carried the potential to uproot and reshape norms long held untouchable. As night descended on the city, blanketing it in quiet resolve, Ava understood this was only the beginning. She walked forward, embraced by the warm glow of streetlights casting long shadows behind her, symbolizing the history she carried and the hopeful future she envisioned. Each step resonated with purpose, no longer just her journey, but a collective march toward a more just tomorrow. As the momentum of Ava's actions echoed through the corridors of public consciousness, attention turned toward the lurking figure of Officer Brant Kessler, the man whose confrontation with Ava had ignited this firestorm. Behind the facade of legal authority, a darker history began to unfurl, a narrative of systemic oppression woven through past interactions and unchecked power. Researchers, journalists, and everyday citizens alike dug into Kessler's history, piecing together a tapestry all too familiar yet seldom acknowledged in its entirety. As records and personal testimonies emerged, a picture of routine malfeasance came to light, revealing multiple allegations of misconduct. It was a damning revelation, painting him not as an outlier, but as a symptom of a broken system where such behavior was not only tolerated but tacitly encouraged. The stories painted a chilling portrait. Instances where those without the platform or privilege to fight back found themselves bullied into submission, silence enforced by badge and baton. Minority communities, already on edge beneath the specter of law enforcement overreach, had long borne the brunt of Kessler's penchant for unnecessary aggression, masked as maintaining order. A particularly unsettling episode highlighted his forceful handling of a teenage boy, barely 18, and protesting for racial equality. The excuse Brant provided then was one of subduing a potential threat, a narrative all too often accepted without scrutiny. His tactics for control he claimed as necessary were seen by many as a veiled exercise of power by an oppressor drunk on unchecked authority. This accumulation of injustices spurred outrage, providing a critical pivot point that extended beyond Ava's encounter and touched countless lives, scarred by Kessler's badge-backed fists. Activists seized on this avalanche of information, using it as fuel to feed their calls for accountability not just for Brant Kessler, but for the systemic failings he reflected. Mainstream media, until now fed by the sensational moments of the courtroom incident, widened their focus. Stories ran daily, highlighting patterns of abuse in law enforcement, questioning the structures designed to protect perpetrators under the guise of protection for the community. The narrative evolved rapidly, Ava's story becoming a catalyst for exposing deeper and more insidious issues. Amid this chaos, the police department found itself under a microscope, compelled into uncomfortable admissions amid growing public pressure. Chief Donaldson, a man steeped in the machinery of law enforcement politics, faced persistent questioning. His hands tightened on the carefully scripted statements delivered to the media, his face a mask of professionalism strained beneath the spotlight's relentless scrutiny. "For too long, individuals have acted outside the bounds of their duty," he recited, acknowledging the exigency yet careful not to spill into full admission. In the eyes of the public, his words felt half-hearted, fruits of damage control rather than genuine commitment to reform. The Internal Affairs Department, reluctantly summoned, initiated investigations not only into Kessler's conduct, but into departmental policies that allowed such patterns to perpetuate. The aim was clear: to determine whether this was a singular case of misconduct or indicative of a more systemic rot corroding precincts from within. Meanwhile, Ava was acutely aware of the delicate balance between scrutiny and safety. She had unwittingly become a lodestar for those demanding change, a status she bore with dignity, but also a burden of vigilance, conscious that the gaze of fame could attract dangers from within the very system she challenged. Yet, amidst the societal churn, there was a quiet resolve within Ava, a whisper of internal certainty that this exposure was necessary for genuine change. Her personal stakes were locked within a broader collective good, a promise that every story illuminated carried the potential for transformation. The public outcry reverberated through political offices and community centers alike, each individual adding their voice to a growing symphony demanding justice. Policies were scrutinized, past incidents revisited with fresh eyes eager to wield accountability as both sword and shield. Collaborations between activists and key legal figures turned sharply towards reform, gaining traction with an authenticity that spoke to an undeniable need for evolution. New alliances formed quickly, weaving a network of resistance ready to bring about the legislative change required to prevent future injustices. Through all this, Ava remained focused. Emails from allies, messages of support, and stories of shared struggles flowed through her, each reinforcing the tangible impact resonating from those 8 seconds. She spoke to audiences not just as victims seeking redress, but as co-authors in this new chapter toward equitable justice. Kessler had become a symbol of misuse, abuse, and the urgent need for reform, and while his future was uncertain, the momentum set in motion was not. Conversations that once lingered in whispers had emerged bold and loud, challenging the very fabric of a system overdue for re-evaluation. As night once more draped the city in its cloak, Ava found solace in the singular act of looking out into the dark, knowing that where shadows lingered, light must inevitably follow. Her battle was part of a much larger war, one that thrummed with the energy of countless joined voices, where change was no longer just a possibility but a determined will, fiercely propelled forward by the truth revealed. In the growing momentum of the movement, Ava found herself surrounded by the vibrance and authenticity of newfound Allison eclectic mix of individuals united by a common purpose. As their efforts continued to expand, a collective realization crystallized. This was not just about reacting to one incident. It was the beginning of an enduring campaign for justice and equity, knitted together by each act of courage shared across the nation. Ava's days became a whirlwind of meetings, speeches, and planning sessions, each moment infused with the urgency of change initiative, crafting strategies that would shift the cultural landscape. Jade, whose unwavering dedication provided both guidance and strength, stood alongside Ava as they navigated this complex terrain, a duo empowered by mutual respect and shared goals. Underneath this wave of activism lay a profound story, a history that was both uniquely Ava's and universally resonant. It was steeped in the voices of those who had fought before them and infused with the determination of those who now stepped forward. Within the movement, Ava's personal narrative had transcended the singular to become emblematic of a broader fight against entrenched prejudice and subtle injustice. Her story, renowned now through countless articles and broadcasts, became a cornerstone upon which others built their own foundations of awareness and action. People spoke of Ava not just as an icon but as a Pira woman whose integrity and unrelenting pursuit of fairness mirrored the aspirations of many who had felt unseen and unheard. While addressing a crowd gathered in a large auditorium filled with banners and signs echoing messages of unity and resolve, Ava noticed a sea of diverse faces looking back at her, each pair of eyes holding stories of their own. It was here, on these stages, that personal and collective journeys intersected, forming a tapestry rich in hope and defiance. "Each of us carries a piece of this fight," Ava said into the silence, her words laced with the wisdom born of personal struggle and collective strength. "Together, we create a legacy of justice that cannot be extinguished. Our diversity is our power, and our unity, our resolve." As applause thundered, a symphony echoing from all corners of the room, Ava realized that this fight was more than about individual rights, it was about collective humanity. The applause seemed to envelop those gathered, drawing them into a shared understanding that this journey was as much about lifting one another as it was about toppling unjust structures. With each passing day, Ava observed how this movement inspired others to uncover and embrace their power. It was no longer enough to be a passive viewer in the face of injustice. People were stepping forward, each action a flickering light illuminating the path to progress. Young activists began to emerge, galvanized by the passion spiraling out from Ava's actions. They were the new wave of advocates and changemakers, armed with the digital knowledge and relentless spirit of their generation. These youth groups took inspiration from Ava's narrative, skillfully weaving it into their dialogues and protests, transforming hope into tangible action plans that could challenge even the most resistant institutions. Back in the coalition's bustling headquarters, brimming with the fervor of plans set in motion, Ava and Jade worked tirelessly to keep the momentum alive. They were both catalysts and participants, the architects of a growing network that seized upon shared ideals to drive forward a mission that was changing lives. Collaborative meetings became the lifeblood of their ongoing efforts. No longer isolated, these gatherings cultivated cross-sectional strategies that informed campaigns and influenced policy proposals. Ava and her peers pushed for legislative advancements, seeking allyship among political representatives courageous enough to press systemic reform terrains. This fight was not simply a reaction to past injustice. It was a prelude to a future where those ensnared by historical inequities could build lives unshackled from fear. The movement relentlessly sought to redefine what justice looked like in a community where every voice mattered equally, where every person was afforded dignity and respect. Reflecting on the resilience shared among her peers, Ava understood one core truth. The heart of activism lay not in symbolic gestures alone, but in the actions taken to turn those symbols into reality. For the laws written and unchallenged were often the barriers to equity, and their mission now was to unravel that complacency. Every voice amplified in the chorus produced not just sound, but an unbreakable bond of commitment. On stages, in private moments of conversation, and through digital lines that erased distance, Ava found the world untangling itself from the chokehold of apathy. It was not merely ambition, but imperative to strengthen the bridges forming amid the ruins of old paradigms. The narrative had shifted, and as Ava moved through each day, she felt the weight of the past relegated to the role of teacher rather than oppressor. The seeds of change had taken root, nourished by the patter of footsteps marching forward, resolute in their intention to cultivate a world where justice reflected the integrity of all its people. Standing at the intersection of dreams and reality, Ava contemplated her journey and the countless others who supported her throughout. She knew she stood on the precipice of something enduring, a vibrant future ready to blossom from the seeds of courage and solidarity sown in the fertile soil of shared human endeavor. Ava's mission, now inseparable from her identity, had evolved into a communal pledge, a relentless and united cry for justice that rang out, undeterred, through the annals of time. The shift in focus was palpable, a tectonic movement within the fabric of a society now questioning its own foundations. The reverberations from Ava's pivotal confrontation in the courtroom instigated a wave of introspection and accountability within the judicial and political spheres. Institutions that had long stood unchallenged by public scrutiny now found themselves under intense examination, as the public demanded not just token gestures but tangible changes. Within the somber corridors of power, there was a newfound urgency, a buzz of activity driven by the relentless pressure from citizens who were no longer willing to accept the status quo. Politicians, once content to ride the wave of complacency, now faced an electorate unwilling to settle for empty promises. The clarity and courage of Ava's actions had revived the activist spirit dormant within so many, turning whispers of discontent into roars for reform. Meetings that were once filled with rote rhetoric now bristled with dynamic conversation as leaders gathered to address the faults laid bare by recent events. The analysis was exhaustive, punctuated by a sober acknowledgement of systemic failings and the critical need for reassessment. Policymakers quickly assembled, framing proposals intended not just to placate anger but to lay groundwork for long-term reform. Ava's impact was undeniable, her actions acting as a catalyst to expedite these overdue discussions. Among the significant shifts taking root was a proposal for an independent oversight committee, comprised of a diverse coalition of community leaders, legal experts, and civilian representatives. This body was charged with monitoring and reviewing law enforcement practices, its primary function to ensure transparency, accountability, and equitable treatment for all citizens. Such a suggestion, bold and progressive, aimed to penetrate the veil of confidentiality that had long protected misconduct from public accountability. In legislative halls, debates raged with new intensity. Previously insular arenas of policymaking were now echoing with the voices of those determined to inject truth and justice into deliberations. Ava, along with her coalition partners, found themselves invited into these very spaces that had previously seemed inaccessible. Their presence was a testament to the growing realization that genuine reform required the input of those who lived the consequences of broken systems daily. As she navigated these halls of influence, Ava maintained an unwavering focus on her overarching mission. She moved with a confident resolve honed through the rigors of experience and fortified by the hopes and expectations of those she represented. The stakes were high, the margin for error slim, yet she was equipped with the tenacity necessary to face such challenges head-on. In a key meeting with influential lawmakers, Ava took the floor, her words mirroring the somber urgency in her heart. She called upon legislators to enact changes that would dismantle the systemic racism woven into the fabric of law enforcement and criminal justice. Her voice, steady and powerful, resonated through the chamber, forging a path through political divides and apathy. "We can't measure progress by the persistence of corruption," Ava declared, her statement drawing nods of agreement from those assembled around her. "Real progress means restructuring our systems to reflect the dignity and humanity of every person. This isn't optional, it's imperative." These meetings steadily bore fruit. Proposals began to take shape, each step meticulously scrutinized for its potential to strike at the heart of inequality. Lawmakers, their perspectives widened by Ava's insights and the unwavering demand from the public, started to align themselves with the cause, seeing not only the moral necessity but also the political opportunity in backing comprehensive reform. The energy born from these endeavors trickled down into community action. Local initiatives sprang forth, each taking inspiration from the burgeoning momentum at the national level. Councils convened, bringing together citizens and leaders alike to craft localized solutions adaptable to their specific needs, further connecting the dots across societal gaps. In addition to Ava's immediate impact in legislative circles, her actions inspired a chain reaction of shifts in policy enforcement within the police departments themselves. A visible shift emerged as officers who had long abided by a code of silence began advocating openly for reforms in their ranks. Whistleblower protections were strengthened, budding efforts that incentivized a culture of accountability and self-regulation from within the force, previously absent. As these vital changes began to weave through institutions both large and small, the media's spotlight on Ava intensified, her symbolic presence amplified by these newfound victories. But the true impact lay not in the headlines or the accolades. It lay within the understanding that the movement for justice and integrity was finally evolving from an aspirational ideal to an actionable reality. Ava became a lodestar among reform advocates, her involvement symbolizing more than resistance. She personified revival, a reinvention to match the aspirations of a society in desperate need of healing and equity. Her journey through these processes spoke to the necessity of vigilance and the power of unity in achieving substantive transformation. As legislation began the slow journey from proposal to law, Ava stood firm in her commitment, alongside thousands who shared the vision of a world where justice flowed evenly across all levels of society. Her unrelenting resolve remained a constant, a reminder that the fight wasn't simply for justice, it was a promise to future generations that change was not just left to the pages of history, but written into its continuing story. With each forward stride in legislation and community reform, the society Ava dreamed of moved one step closer to reality, its promise not yet fully realized, but brightened by the stalwart dedication of those embracing change. The path forward was clear, and though much work lay ahead, Ava found herself invigorated by the possibilities, affirming the relevance of a question posed by every transformative leader: if not now, when? In the aftermath of the judicial whirlwind and the political maelstrom, Ava found herself back in the quiet of her apartment, a temporary sanctuary where the world's demands receded, even if just momentarily. Her space was simple, adorned with the mementos of her journey, photographs of family members, each face a reminder of her roots, and the hard-earned symbols of her Navy SEAL achievements, a testament to resilience and discipline. When left alone with her thoughts, Ava felt the dual weight of personal and universal battles thrust upon her shoulders. Each day was an emotional roller coaster, her innate strength continuously tested by the complexity of the struggle she led. Wading through the morass of systemic injustice required not just courage, but also an immense emotional fortitude to confront the deep-seated racial and gender biases within society. It was late evening, the glow of city lights casting flickering shadows through her window, interspersed with quiet moments of introspection. Ava picked up a photograph, yellowed, slightly faded black and white of her grandmother, Jocelyn, standing proudly on the steps of a courthouse after a pivotal civil rights protest in the 1960s. Jocelyn's defiant smile mirrored Ava's own sense of resolve, as if strengthening her spirit across the generational chasm. In that quiet moment, Ava understood deeply and profoundly the price that came with being a symbol of defiance against an entrenched system. Her grandmother had fought similar battles, navigating a world fraught with hostility and discrimination. The reality of this shared lineage weighed heavily on Ava, yet it was also her encouragement, a reminder of the enduring continuity of their fight. Outside her window, the city remained alive, a vibrant ecosystem of stories and struggles intertwined within its streets. Ava turned her gaze inward. Her isolation in these rare moments was deceptive. They provided a necessary respite but were filled with the echoes of communities relying on the ripple effect of her actions. Conversations with friends and allies replayed in her mind, each interaction a testament to shared purpose. Lingering in these thoughts, Ava picked up her phone and scrolled through messages of support that flooded in, each one recharging her spirit. Reports from coalition members highlighted small victories, community forums that were bustling with productive dialogue, legislative proposals that had cleared initial hurdles, and instances of individual officers speaking out for justice reform. It was a symphony of progress filled with myriad notes, each contributing to the broader melody of change. Yet, amid these achievements, Ava's introspection was not without tension. The personal cost was palpable. There were days spent propping her spirit against exhaustion, born of being both an avatar of change and a human with her own vulnerabilities. Ava's family, deeply supportive, also feared for her safety and well-being. Their concern was a nagging presence at the edges of her resolve, a persistent reminder of the stakes involved, not just for her, but for those closest to her. In a rare moment of doubt, Ava whispered into the solitude, "What if this isn't enough?" Her voice barely audible, yet carrying the weight of every sacrifice made and every challenge yet to come. The question hung in the air, an acknowledgement of the mountainous task she faced. Even as these doubts surfaced, they were met by a rush of determination. Ava found herself believing not only in her abilities, but in the collective potential of the movement she was part of. This conviction was living proof. It was the embodiment of a belief that change was within reach, seated in the actions of countless others alongside her. Suddenly, a notification blinked on her phone, pulling her from her reverie. A message from Jade, succinct in its urgency. "Emergency meeting request tomorrow noon, at HQ, potential pushback." With those words, Ava's brief respite ended, her senses sharpening to the challenge ahead. The terrain of advocacy was unsteady, fraught with potential setbacks and resistance. Yet Ava's return to the fray was inevitable. Each new obstacle was not a deterrent but a dare, urging her to overcomprehend and adjust her strategies yet again. As she mentally prepared for the meeting, Ava understood that the movement's forward momentum was fragile. Each success required painstaking maintenance and vigilance. It demanded perpetual learning and adaptation in the face of adversity, but it also fed the soul, affirming the righteousness of their cause. Sitting in the dim light, Ava closed her eyes, drawing strength from her ancestors, from the children whose futures hung in the balance, and from the present's conviction, a mosaic of hope engraved in her spirit through years of erstwhile readiness. As dawn approached, breaking through the pallor of night, Ava felt renewed clarity. In the quiet crescendo of a breaking day, she was reminded that though weariness could linger, it could not overshadow the belief that had carried her this far. And, with every step forward, Ava reaffirmed her commitment to a cause as profound and integral as life itself, one that transcended generations, promising a hopeful horizon on which they would all eventually stand tall together. Ava strode into the meeting headquarters the next day, her mind a battlefield of focus and anticipation. The brisk walk had cleared her head, girding her spirit for whatever awaited. The room was alive with a pulse that thrummed through the aura, palpable energy that signaled collective determination. Here, amidst familiar faces, she felt the solidarity that had come to define this movement. The emergency meeting had drawn a diverse group of advocates, allies, and community representatives. Many were legal experts, seasoned in navigating the labyrinthine systems of justice and policy. Others were grassroots organizers, their insights honed through direct engagement with the communities they represented. Each presence was a testament to their shared goal: transformative justice forged through persistent, unyielding efforts. Jade stood at the head of the table, her presence as commanding as ever. With a slight nod acknowledging Ava's arrival, she began to outline the crux of their gathering. "We've received reports of mounting pushback from entrenched interests," she stated, her voice cutting through the drone of conversations. "There are efforts underway to undermine our progress by sowing misinformation and stoking fear among law enforcement agencies and their supporters." Her words pierced the room's atmosphere, bringing a sharp focus to the challenges that lay ahead. Ava had anticipated such resistance. The road to reform was rarely linear. It was fraught with setbacks designed to erode momentum and divide consensus. "There are rumors circulating," Jade continued, "suggesting that our calls for oversight and reform are a threat to police autonomy, claims aimed at igniting defensive stands rather than fostering collaboration." As murmurs of concern flitted around the room, Ava felt a familiar resolve solidify within her. She recognized these tactics as attempts to fracture the unity of their coalition, leveraging fear against the potential for progress. Yet her own journey had prepared her for this fight. The key lay in countering misinformation with truth, dispelling fear with understanding. A seasoned civil rights lawyer, Carla Davis, spoke up, her calm demeanor cloaking the steady intensity of her commitment. "We need to engage directly with these fears, build relationships with those within law enforcement who are open to dialogue. We can undermine the opposition's narrative by expanding our coalition to include voices from within their ranks." Her suggestion aligned seamlessly with Ava's belief in the power of unity, a conviction that justice required partnerships rather than alienation. Recognizing common ground, she interjected, "We must continue to highlight our goals, focusing on accountability and community partnership. This isn't about dismantling their institution, but reinventing it to reflect fairness and equity." The suggestion that the system might be reimagined instilled a renewed sense of purpose among the attendees. The challenges loomed large, yet their strategies and commitment were equally formidable. They knew that the stakes were high, their efforts pivotal in forging an equitable system that transcended the rot of systemic bias. As the discussion wore on, specific strategies took form. They resolved to launch an outreach campaign aimed at fostering goodwill and mutual understanding between the police and the communities they served, a movement championed under the banner "Building Bridges of Trust." This initiative was seen as critical to quelling misinformation and aligning diverse stakeholders toward a shared vision of justice. The planners outlined a schedule for town hall meetings and community workshops designed to engage with officers, citizens, politicians, and local representatives. These platforms would become arenas for authentic conversation, illuminating pathways to reform that resonated with those directly affected by policing policies. Jade and Ava formed an integral part of the initiative, their voices tasked with reaching both within and beyond their movement, their presence a reminder of commitment that transcended conflict. They would amplify stories of shared humanity, linking experiences to bridge the gap between perceived adversaries. Ava leaned into every conversation, her heart and mind fueled by the weight and urgency of their task. Each participant was driven not just by principle but by profound laborious dedication to crafting stories that would dismantle barriers and reshape narratives. The meeting's energy was infectious, each decision uncovering avenues toward a future they believed in. In the days that followed, the campaign unfurled its reach across states and communities, harnessing the energy of countless voices ready to partake in reshaping the landscape. Ava found herself once again speaking before crowds, her words resonating as clarion calls. We fight not against individuals, but against the practices that inhibit justice. Together, we redefine the possibilities for our society. News of the initiative spread quickly, challenging the dissenters who sought to maintain status quo through divisive rhetoric. Gradually, those within law enforcement who understood the value of integrity over insularity began to reach back, offering their support. Ava witnessed bridges forming before her eyes, the tentative steps toward collaboration blossoming into collective resolve. Through workshops and discussions, the conversations deepened, voices intertwining in layers of rich dialogue. Each interaction revealed shared aspirations for a society where safety and justice were indivisible, protected by an accountable system that embraced reform rather than resisted it. As Ava returned to her apartment one evening, exhausted yet exhilarated, she realized that the arc of justice they pursued was indeed bending. It creaked under the strain of old prejudices, but was made flexible by the vision, action, and courage of those determined to see it through. The reflection staring back at Ava from her mirror seemed fuller of life, hope blending with fatigue, each a testament to her labor. She understood that while the fight for justice was unending, they were now on firmer footing. The bridges of understanding they built had transformed from mere ideas into pathways leading toward a reimagined future. Ava leaned back, her body heavy but spirit light, knowing that as long as they worked together, with vigilance, the promise of equity and dignity was no longer out of reach, but within their grasp, ready to be realized through unity and indefatigable resolve. The rumble of activity within the coalition, amplified as Ava's presence, became emblematic of the enduring fight for justice. The meetings, rallies, and strategy sessions over the past months had forged a path toward greater accountability and reform, yet Ava sensed that her role was not merely as a figurehead but as a pragmatic leader faced with the messy reality of systemic change. Word of the coalition's growing influence and Ava's pivotal role reached the very corridors of power where decisions tilted the scales of justice. While allies stood alongside her, growing in number and resolve, the opposition equally dug in their heels, determined to stymie progress through legislative loopholes and bureaucratic inertia. The pushback was significant but expected. Inside police precincts, rumors persisted, fueled by a false narrative that reforms would dismantle authority rather than reinforce it through integrity. In political chambers, voices muttered about overreach and the subversion of established norms. Yet Ava, alongside her coalition, remained undeterred, meeting resistance with resilience and misinformation with truth. The burdens weighed heavily on Ava's shoulders, but with each challenge came a profound realization of the power inherent in collective defiance. The realization that every setback was merely a prelude to growth steeled her resolve. As winter gave way to the vibrancy of spring, the media spotlight on Ava shifted yet again. Now, their focus settled on examining the fallout and future reforms inspired by her courtroom confrontation that had captivated the nation. Interviews and opinion pieces painted a picture of a movement that, sparked by one woman's defiance, sparked a nationwide reckoning. One such interview, held with a prominent reporter known for incisive explorations of justice and reform, was set in a sunlit parka, deliberate choice symbolizing transparency and openness. As cameras rolled, Ava articulated the coalition's objectives, her words imbued with the clarity of purpose honed through adversity. Justice must be a living concept, evolving with our society, Ava stated, casting a vision that reached beyond immediate goals. Our actions today pave the path for a future where equity is not aspirational but embedded in every facet of our justice system. Her statement resonated through homes across the nation, further solidifying her status as a beacon for reform, yet also as a target for critics intent on maintaining the status quo. The duality of her position was never clear, each step toward progress unfurling amid applause and opposition alike. In broader circles, Ava's efforts inspired fellow activists who saw their struggles mirrored in her journey. Meetings were convened, alliances forged anew with those who had long fought for change within different sectors. Their engagement underscored the interconnectedness of their cause, bringing together labor unions, education reformists, and climate activists who recognized the overarching need for systemic overhaul. Meanwhile, Ava navigated personal sacrifice and triumph alike. Conversations with family revealed the quiet toll her chosen path had taken. Her parents' supportive counsel often tinged with concern. Her siblings rallied around her, proud of her influence while reminding her of the home from which her strength was drawn. Her circle of allies expanded, forged through shared trials and aspirations as they pursued reforms that would redefine their collective future. Through moments of exhaustion, Ava felt buoyed by the reality that she lacked the burden of single-handedly shouldering the promise of change. Instead, she was part of a tapestry, each thread necessary, vibrant, and unyielding. Months into the campaign, a pivotal breakthrough arrived, a bill born of persistence and pressure that mandated independent oversight of law enforcement practices passed its first legislative hurdles. In assembly rooms and Senate corridors, the whispers of reform carried significant weight, ushering in a glimmer of hope that systemic accountability might find its place. The success was met with elation across the coalition, a testament to the unified strength they had cultivated. Yet Ava understood this triumph for what it was, a milestone, not the finish line. The fragile gains required protection, vigilance, and continuous effort to ensure their longevity. As Ava sat at her desk, her laptop open to field reports of the coalition's latest achievements, she paused to savor the moment. It was this momentum, hard-won and deeply cherished, that would sustain them through the unknown challenges that lay ahead. Her phone buzzed with a message from Judea, simple acknowledgement that spoke volumes to their shared journey. "We're making waves," it read, affirming the impact they were driving forward with relentless intensity. Reflecting on these points of triumph and trial, Ava's resolve was renewed. She guided the next phase of their mission with steadfast determination, knowing the weight of their shared legacy was carried not just by her, but by everyone committed to justice. The movement had become a living entity, unstoppable and expansive, its roots sown into every crevice of a society yearning for transformation. With each meeting and outreach, Ava was buoyed by the certainty that their cause was righteous. The narrative of her journey, from those fateful courtroom moments to ongoing relentless advocacy, was a testament to shared tenacity. In each quiet reflection and loud proclamation, Ava distilled the essence of their battle into an unwavering truth. Justice was neither passive nor poised, it was a resolute march toward justice, defining not just a movement, but generations yet to come. In the months following their early victories, the coalition's journey was marked by a series of intense engagements that tested the limits of Ava's resilience and resolve. Time pressed onward, leaving an indelible mark on those who pushed for change, shaping the fight for justice into something deeply personal yet universally aspiring. During a particularly challenging period, the layers of Ava's commitment deepened. She began to sense a powerful inner struggle, a battle between the fierce fighter the world saw and the tender-hearted leader shown only to those she trusted most. As the demands of leadership grew, so did Ava's need to reconcile these twin identities, navigating the complexities of public figurehood while maintaining a private self. Late at night, in moments stolen from the relentless grind of advocacy, Ava found herself reflecting on the emotional landscape that lay beneath her cool exterior. She grappled with the fatigue born of constant vigilance against a system often resistant to change, even as victories fueled her determination. There was a profound cost to being a figurehead, an underpinning of pressure and expectation that sometimes left her feeling isolated amidst the very community that embraced her. One evening, After a lengthy negotiation session with city officials about forthcoming police reforms, Ava returned to her reflective refugier apartment, seeking solace in its quiet corners. Summer's warmth had settled over the city, and the evening breeze carried the muffled hum of life beyond her walls. Sinking into an armchair, she allowed herself a rare moment to breathe, closing her eyes and letting the sounds wash over her, grounding her in the present. It was not long before she heard a familiar voice break the silence. James, a close confidant from her SEAL days, and now a steadfast ally in her justice work, had let himself in. His presence offered the comfort of familiarity and anchor in a sea of uncertainty. "Hey," he greeted softly, recognizing the weight of the day etched across her features. "Tough negotiations?" "Par for the course," Ava responded, every syllable carrying the fatigue she felt. "But they went well. We've laid the groundwork at least." James nodded thoughtfully, joining her on the armchair's edge. "I was talking to Jade earlier," he began, shifting seamlessly into the blend of camaraderie and counsel that marked their friendship. "She mentioned how you're shouldering a lot, Ava. We all see it, and we're in this with you. You're doing incredible work, but we want to make sure you're okay." His words resonated with a keen understanding, offering both reassurance and a gentle reminder that her burden was not hers to carry alone. Ava released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding, appreciating the reprieve. "I know," she admitted, her voice just above a whisper. "It's just, sometimes it feels like there's no room for error, you know?" "That's the weight of leadership," James replied, his tone steady, yet laced with empathy. "But the beauty of it is, the strength you lend to this movement, it's reciprocated. You aren't alone. We rise together." The conversation shifted the room's energy, infusing it with renewed resolve. It gave Ava space to acknowledge that it was okay not to always have all the answers, that leaning on others was a strength, not a weakness. As they shared this moment of introspection, Ava realized the necessity of balancing empowerment with rest, vigilance with vulnerability. Her commitment to justice did not preclude her humanity. Instead, it enriched it, adding depth to her resolve. Emboldened by this renewed perspective, Ava regrouped with her coalition the following day, her spirit invigorated and her determination unyielding. Together with Jade and James, they refined their strategies, ensuring each decision reflected their collective wisdom and unwavering commitment to change. As days turned into weeks, the team's cohesion strengthened further, leading to tangible shifts in community policing policies and heightened accountability measures across jurisdictions. They championed new training programs focused on empathy and de-escalation, steering the dialogue toward meaningful change with every measured step. Through the ebbs and flows, Ava navigated this journey with an acute awareness of its profound duality of fighter to the outside world, a guiding light within. The balance she sought became an essential part of her leadership, grounding her in the humanity that fueled their fight. With each stride toward reform, the coalition persisted, weathering storms and heralding triumphs in equal measure. Ava continued championing their cause, her presence a testament to the power of unity and the necessity of addressing justice not as an individual endeavor but as a shared moral crusade. Standing firm against the tide of resistance and bolstered by the harmony of allyship, Ava's journey became a living narrative, a reflection of the intricate tapestry of struggle and strength that crafted the soul of the movement she led. It was a journey bound not just by objectives, but by the vision of a world defined by equity and enduring legacy, built through each act of courage and every testament to collective resolve. The coalition's resolve had become a beacon of hope, casting light into the corners of the communities they served. Ava stood amidst this renewed energy, her heart entwined with the shared mission to amplify voices and enact real, lasting change. The momentum they had built was palpable. Each rally, meeting, and discourse, fueling a movement growing in confidence and impact. Through the undulating landscape of advocacy, a defining ethos had emerged, binding the various threads of their effort into a coherent tapestry of action. Community unity woven from shared experiences and collective aspirations formed the backbone of their endeavor, galvanizing diverse groups into an unstoppable force for justice. Ava found herself marveling at the breadth of their achievements. Local councils had begun rolling out new oversight committees guided by civilian perspectives, while initiatives fostering transparency had gained traction at municipal levels. These victories, though hard-won, were testament to the power of persistence and the ability of people united by purpose to transcend division. Her days were filled with engagement and coordination, fostering alliances among disparate groups drawn together by the promise of equitable reform. Ava became not just a leader, but a catalyst for connection, using her platform to bridge the gaps between policymakers and the communities they served. During a planning session in the newly energized movement headquarters, a vibrant space buzzing with ideas and action, Ava stood before a diverse assembly of activists and leaders. Maps of their various initiatives adorned the walls like battle plans, each line and marker a visual representation of their scope and determination. Representation is at the heart of everything we do, Ava emphasized, her voice resonant with clarity and conviction. Every perspective strengthens us, and every story we share widens the reach of justice. We are not just asking for change, we're cultivating it, with every conversation and community effort driving us forward. Her words were met with applause, the enthusiasm in the room a manifestation of their shared commitment. The coalition's strength lay in its diversity's unique voice, adding depth to their collective narrative. In this fertile ground of collaboration, Ava witnessed remarkable initiatives taking root. Efforts to engage the youth in civic participation blossomed into vibrant programs where new generations were taught the importance of advocacy and resilience. Workshops aimed at cultural sensitivity and unconscious bias training permeated local institutions, gradually transforming interactions and instigating dialogue. One of the success stories shared during these sessions was that of a neighborhood revitalization project helmed by a blend of community volunteers and city planners. This initiative was fueled by the coalition's earlier work, harnessing the power of cooperation to breathe new life into spaces long neglected by systemic oversight. The project embodied the transformative potential of collaboration, demonstrating the effectiveness of grassroots activism in instigating tangible, positive change. Amidst these successes, Ava remained acutely aware of the challenges that persisted, each uphill climb a reminder that systemic transformation required relentless energy and strategic focus. Pushback from some establishment quarters continued to lament reforms as threats rather than enhancements, revealing the deep wells of fear and misunderstanding that still needed to be addressed. While juggling these complexities, Ava saw in her fellow leaders the embodiment of hope necessary to counter inertia and maintain momentum. She drew strength from their shared mission, her resolve fortified by the support of comrades who understood both the enormity of the fight and the inexhaustible wellspring of human resilience. James, ever present in his supportive role, often reminded Ava that the journey of change was not a sprint but a marathon, a lesson that gnawed at the edges of patience, yet reinforced the significance of each step, no matter how small. Their conversations, filled with both strategic insights and heartfelt camaraderie, were vital sources of motivation for Ava. In neighborhoods and council meetings, the effects of their collective action began to ripple outward. Ava's belief in the power of community, now corroborated through action and outcome, became a cornerstone of ongoing progress. The coalition no longer a scattered collection of idealists, but a network of solutions-focused advocates leveraged every gain toward sustained momentum. Standing in solidarity at a local rally one late afternoon, Ava took in the sight of a crowd spanning generations, all clamoring for a transformed notation of justice. Each placard raised high bore a simple truth, that a society built on equity benefited everyone. In that moment, surrounded by songs, chants, and determined faces, Ava understood with certainty that they were crafting a new legacy, one deeply intertwined with collective dreams and built upon the unassailable foundation of shared strength. Her heart swelled with gratitude and determination, fueling her to continue this work that was both personal and profoundly universal. As the chants of unity echoed across the open field, Ava felt the tensions between past struggles and future possibilities dissolve, leaving only the purity of purpose and the thrill of possibility. They were indeed stronger together, forging a path for a future where resilience and justice walked hand in hand, a testament to the vibrant power of community-bound change. The echoes of the rally lingered in Ava's mind as she navigated the vibrant landscape of achievement, collaboration, and occasional discord that defined their collective push for justice. The path was relentless, a rigorous test of spirit and strategy, but with each stride, the foundation for enduring change grew more concrete. Amidst these triumphs, Ava often found herself reflecting not just on their victories, but also on the lessons learned along the way. The movement had evolved, matured into a living entity, with its own rhythm and pulsy dynamic organism, powered by hope and resilience. A critical lesson emerged from Ava's journey, one that rattled the core of every challenge and opportunity: the transformative power of empathy. In every encounter, whether with adversaries or allies, Ava discovered that understanding the human element, the stories driving individuals' actions and perspectives, was key to bridging divides and fostering genuine change. In the days following the rally, Ava was invited to participate in a panel discussion at a nearby university aimed at exploring the impact of grassroots advocacy on institutional reform. The audience, a tapestry of students and faculty, activists and curious citizens, represented a cross-section of the community eager to engage with the topic. As Ava took her place on the stage, she was flanked by other voices of influence, seasoned activists whose stories interwove seamlessly with hers. The discourse was rich with insights as each panelist delved into their journeys, highlighting the critical moments that propelled their causes. When it was Ava's turn to speak, she leaned forward, intent on conveying the depth of her experience. "For our movement to endure and evolve," she began, her voice steady, "we must acknowledge the humanity within each stakeholder in this struggle. Change is sustained not by shouting into the void, but by listening, understanding, and acting upon the diverse narratives that shape our world." Her statement resonated throughout the auditorium, touching a collective nerve within the audience. Faces nodded in agreement, their expressions reflecting a shared understanding of the simple complexity presented by Ava's truth. Ava recounted pivotal experiences and encounters where recognizing shared humanity became a bridge to collaboration, turning oppositional stances into incremental shifts toward understanding and alignment. She spoke of dialogues initiated with law enforcement officers who, when given a voice, revealed their own struggles with systemic flaws, bridging empathy across an institutional chasm that too often seemed insurmountable. These stories demonstrated that while skepticism and fear persisted, they could be disarmed through patience and empathy, transforming adversarial arenas into spaces ripe for potential partnership. After the panel, Ava was approached by students and community members eager to learn more about supporting the movement. Questions abounded, each inquiry a testament to the passion ignited by the discussion: how to get involved, how to stay informed. Ava took time to speak with each person, sharing resources and encouraging their participation, building a bridge beyond the confines of the lecture hall. It became evident that the lessons learned transcended theory, finding roots in action, reminders that the movement wasn't just a response to injustice, but an embodiment of hope grounded in authentic engagement. In the following weeks, empathy became a unifying theme across varied initiatives, propelling dialogues that reached across demographics and disciplines. It empowered volunteers to approach challenges with openness and resolve, encouraging innovative approaches to entrenched problems. The advocacy efforts took on a multifaceted character: forums for dialogue, intersecting with campaigns for legislative change. Art became a canvas for messages of justice, and community gatherings wove intricate networks of support. Each endeavor was testament to the growing recognition that justice was not monolithic but a collaborative creation sustained by shared endeavor. Ava's commitment remained unwavering, her role evolving from a unifying force to an ambassador for possibility, leveraging her platform to illuminate paths to connection rather than division. She met with business leaders open to inclusive practices, educators eager to integrate restorative justice principles into their curricula, and ordinary citizens determined to make extraordinary contributions to change. Speaking at yet another community gathering, Ava emphasized the role of empathy once more. To truly transform our society, we must first transform our self-understanding that everyone's story is a thread in the intricate fabric we're weaving together. As she looked out over the assembled crowd, the excitement in the air was infectious. Ava could feel the momentum building, the promise imbued within each person's resolve. This was not just a movement, it was a collective declaration of our shared humanity, a living testament to the power of connection as a catalyst for real, sustainable change. The lessons learned, the paths charted, and the victories achieved were proof that genuine transformation was not only possible but inevitable. The movement had become an undeniable force for good, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. With each encounter and engagement, Ava internalized these lessons, understanding that her journey was as much about fostering community as achieving justice, a harmonious blend that would inspire future generations to keep the fight alive, unified by empathy and undaunted in their pursuit of equality. The gathering after the community event was smaller, intimate, voices now hushed but vibrant with the heft of what lay ahead. The room buzzed with anticipation and trepidation, the kind felt before unveiling a long-cherished dream. The reckoning was at hand, a convergence of efforts that promised either breakthrough or setback, depending on the intricate ballet of bureaucracy and public outcry. Ava stood poised at the helm as she addressed her core team-trusted allies who had walked beside her through each triumph and trial. The collective sting of challenges yet unresolved hung heavily in the air, a reality as potent as the promise of impending change. Today's outcome, Ava began, her voice commanding yet laced with a trace of vulnerability, reflects the urgency we've fought to instill within our institutions. It's our moment of truth. The pivotal focus of the meeting was a scheduled vote by the City Council on a comprehensive reform bill designed to reconfigure oversight and accountability within law enforcement. Months of negotiation, lobbying, and community pressure had coalesced into this singular, defining moment. A buzz of voices broke out among the assembly as partners and organizers mulled over strategies, negotiated last-minute liaisons with council members, and ironed out details of a possible press release, all part of an intricate web designed to ensure success. Jade, ever the linchpin, rallied the group's focus. This bill marks the beginning of a transformed dialogue between those entrusted with public safety and the communities they serve. But we still need to hold our ground, engage each point of opposition with fact and compassion. Hours later, Ava found herself in a lively city council chamber where the electric tension was matched by a palpable sense of urgency. The air was thick with the hopes of myriad citizens who had flocked to witness history, eager for validation of their collective struggles and dreams. Voices rose and fell in passionate debate as proceedings gained momentum. Supporters of the reform, adorned with pins emblazoned with slogans for justice and unity, filled the room, a testament to the breadth of Ava's movement and the culmination of their tireless efforts. Despite the evident support, Ava remained acutely aware of detractors, those who held firm to fear or tradition over progress. Their murmurs echoed dissent, a reminder of the fragile balance she had struck between reform and resistance. As the vote commenced, silence descended upon the assembly, a crushing, anticipatory quiet that hovered like a storm. Each council member's decision seemed to reverberate loudly, a microcosm of the vast narrative unfolding beyond the chamber's confines. With each passing tally, the tension mounted. Ava's heart beat in sync with the rhythmic counting, each pulse an echo of the thousands of voices she represented. Every nod of agreement or shake of dissent felt like an eternity collapsing within moments. Finally, the totals were announced, the finality of numbers and their implications landing with a heavy, resonant thud. The bill had passed. A chorus of exultant cheers erupted, filling the chamber with a symphony of relief and affirmation. Amid the raucous celebration, Ava felt a swell of emotion, a catharsis for the promises she had tirelessly championed and the struggles that had paved the way for this moment. Her journey, a saga of bravery and perseverance, had materialized into this tangible Victoria landmark in the quest for reclamation of justice and dignity. The room was a cacophony of jubilation, people embracing and congratulating one another, the energy infectious and uplifting. Ava found herself swept into the throng of celebration, each embrace and handshake a tribute to months of relentless dedication. Yet, even as euphoria reigned, Ava felt the weight of responsibility settle deeper within. This milestone, while monumental, was not the culmination of the work that lay ahead, a reality etched into the minds of every member of her movement. In the quieter moments after, Ava caught her reflection in a window, whispered determination in her own eyes. She saw not only the victories but also the unyielding challenges yet to be addressed, a vigilant reminder that each win carried with it the commitment to sustain, nurture, and expand upon their achievements. The evening air outside was a balm, still crackling with echoes of voices raised for justice. Ava inhaled deeply, attuned to the whispers of history mingling with the pull of future promise. The surrounding cityscape, alive with light, stretched infinitely, holding within it both the scars and the potential of a society in flux. Back in the meeting room, Jade approached, a knowing smile on her face. "This is a pivotal shift, Ava," she said, the words warm with camaraderie and respect. "We've pivoted from what's possible to what's real, and that's transformative." Ava nodded, reciprocating Jade's pride and tenacity, understanding the depth and breadth of their shared journey. Their efforts, tender threads woven into the fabric of an evolving society, had initiated a reckoning that dared to call forth a more equitable reality. For Ava, this was more than a singular victory. It was an enduring testament to the power of the human spirit when fortified by unity, empathy, and justice's indomitable pursuit. With renewed resolve, Ava knew they would continue forging the path ahead, a journey where each reckoning summoned transformation, where every voice echoed the promise of a world unburdened by past inequities. Of vision they would relentlessly strive to realize. The intoxicating sense of victory lingered as Ava walked through the dim halls en route to yet another clandestine matina, gathering unlike those held in public forums or government buildings. This meeting was one of whispered courage, a critical moment amidst jubilant celebrations, where strategic whispers and confident nods spoke louder than any public declaration. In a modest, dimly lit community center, the core of Ava's trusted network convened. They included not just advocates from the movement but also those from within the system, insiders in law enforcement and judiciary circles who, despite operating from within the restrained framework of the institutions they served, shared an unyielding commitment to change. These allies had navigated delicate waters to be here, driven by the realization that change depended on the courage to confront and transform from within. Together with Ava, they formed a clandestine alliance, a council of reformists prepared to disrupt the status quo regardless of personal risk. The room was charged with quiet determination as Ava arrived. As they greeted one another, the unspoken language of intention and resolve moved through them, binding them with a shared understanding that this fight was as much about systemic transformation as it was personal redemption. Officer Ben Castillo, a respected veteran in law enforcement, was among those shrouded in secrecy, his role in these meetings a careful balance. His position afforded a unique perspective on the inertia often found within the police force, but he joined Ava out of necessity, a drive to make his badge worthy of the trust it symbolized. Their meeting commenced, the somber mood balanced by excitement for what their collective effort represented. Ava spoke first, her words measured yet infused with the intensity of purpose. "In these rooms, we craft not just strategies but fundamental shifts. Every word, action, and risk taken here is a testament to our commitment to redefine justice." Marissa, a seasoned prosecutor known for her incisive fairness, nodded in agreement. "We're here because justice should enhance, not hinder, our communities. Reform starts with dialogue here. We bridge divides with action." The ensuing discussion was detailed and strategic, their conversations a convergence of passion and pragmatism. Carefully plotted initiatives took shape, each step designed to maximize impact while minimizing exposure, a constant dance of shadows and light. They explored initiatives to introduce into departments and legal offices, ranging from transparent policies to community-engaged practices in law enforcement, aiming to set precedents that would ripple outward with enduring effect. Efforts to dismantle unconscious biases entrenched within the system became an ongoing focus, requiring nuanced vision and steadfast dedication. Officer Castillo spoke of the brave officers willing to challenge convention, their stories forming a backbone of integrity behind the badge. "We need to champion those who speak up against injustice, enabling them to act without fear," he emphasized, his words resonating deeply among the group. This clandestine assembly shared records and intelligence that guided their strategy, swapping insights with the mutual understanding that each revelation could lead to significant changes. Secrecy was both their shield and constraint, protecting their identities, yet hinting at the broader implications of their work. As the meeting continued, it became apparent that this alliance stood as a microcosm of a larger movement, highlighting the courage of individuals breaking ranks to counteract forces of regression. They were interlocked pieces in a puzzle designed to reimagine justice. When finally they adjourned, stepping back into the vast world beyond their shared sanctum, Ava and her fellow reformists carried with them more than plans. They bore the quiet conviction that whispered courage echoed tenfold, igniting action in places where voices were often suppressed. Outside, Ava now understood the limitlessness of whispered bravery, the capability to change course as ripples transformed into waves. These secret meetings were critical dispatches in the broader battle for equity, a campaign conducted in spaces too often forgotten. As she walked through the community center's exit, bathed in the soft twilight, Ava felt the solidarity of those who walked this path with her. They were shepherding a transformative future into being, fortified by values that called them to transcend barriers. The night stretched before Ava, the interplay of shadows and moonlight reflecting the balance she struck between hope and realism. She was not merely a solitary beacon of change, but part of an illuminated alliance prepared to confront injustice at its roots. With whispered courage as their guide, Ava and her allies would continue to navigate the delicate balance between the seen and unseen, poised to seize the spaces where justice could flourish unseen. For in those moments of clandestine planning lived the potential to reshape the world, to finally elevate justice to its rightful place as not just a promise, but a realized legacy. Dawn's first light crept over the city, casting a gentle glow over the streets that had been the backdrop for so much of Ava's journey. The daybreak heralded new opportunities, a chance to breathe life into the legacy she and her allies were determined to build, a living testament to resilience, courage, and lasting reform. Ava awoke with a deep sense of purpose, her heart beating in rhythm with the march towards justice that had defined her and her comrades' lives over these past months. Each morning was a renewal of vows, commitments ingrained in the promises they were determined to keep for their communities. Today's agenda took Ava to a local high school, where she had been invited to speak about her work and the impact of advocacy in reshaping societal norms. Engagement with the youth was paramount. Theirs were the voices and energies that would carry the torch long after the current guardians had passed it on. The school's auditorium was vibrant with anticipation. Students filled every available seat, their youthful faces reflecting curiosity mixed with determination. Teachers and community leaders stood interspersed among the young audience, sharing in the collective eagerness for dialogue. As Ava took her place at the podium, she was greeted by an enthusiastic wave of applause and affirmation of her efforts, but also a testament to the collective longing for change felt by younger generations. The youth, more than anyone, had inherited the urgency of justice with an unyielding passion. "Good morning," Ava began, her voice echoing with warmth and gravitas. "It's humbling to be here with so many of you, ready to shape the future. You are the heartbeat of progress, and your voices are not just as important as ones heard today, they are vital." She shared stories of her journey, weaving them with the stories of the many voices that had joined hers over the course of her advocacy. Ava spoke of the challenges and victories, the whispers of courage that had defined their successes and spurred them forward through adversity. "Every step we take, every voice that joins our cause, creates a ripple that can transform into waves," Ava emphasized, eyes scanning the attentive faces before her. "Your energy, your conviction, matters. This is not only about what we achieve today, but about building a legacy that empowers you to continue the fight." Questions flowed freely afterward, students eager to understand how they might contribute, where their efforts would be most impactful. Ava responded with patience and insight, offering resources, opportunities for involvement, and affirmations of their intrinsic power as advocates. One student, a young black girl with braids cascading down her shoulders, stood to ask how Ava remained motivated despite the many setbacks inherent in seeking justice. It was a question Ava understood deeply, one that resonated with her own moments of doubt and renewal. Motivation, Ava replied thoughtfully, comes from knowing that behind every challenge is an opportunity to push forward. We draw strength from each other, from the knowledge that our struggles are interconnected, and therefore, so are our solutions. Remember, resilience is part of our corite, fuels our persistence. The answer sparked visible reflection among the audience, a spark of realization illuminating faces rich with potential. Ava's words were seeds planted on fertile ground, destined to become personal oaths to justice, nurtured by the discussions taking place. Beyond the school walls, the coalition continued its work, each initiative buoyed by the commitment visible at the grassroots level. Ava's interactions with students rejuvenated her spirit, echoing the truth that for every barrier encountered, countless bridges could be built through education, empathy, and action. As the day unfolded into afternoon, Ava reconvened with her coalition team, sharing the infectiously optimistic energy she had absorbed from her engagements. Each project update, every step detailed, further propelled their shared momentum towards systemic reform. Every victory dovetailed into the next challenge, and while setbacks were inevitable, each solution was a collective triumph of ingenuity. The coalition had grown beyond a single movement, transforming into a lasting framework for advocation, inexhaustible resource built upon shared ideals and unyielding camaraderie. Ava ended her day in the company of her core team, their focus shifting from immediate objectives to the broader vision of the legacy they endeavored to establish. It was a vision reflected in the burgeoning hopes of those young students she had met, those poised to inherit and expand upon the demands of justice. Together, they vowed to continue with renewed vigor, aware of the profound responsibility they held not just to effect change, but also to steward the ideals of equity for future generations. They were laying the groundwork for justice that lived beyond policy, a justice that embodied the values of every community. In the tender evening light, Ava understood the eternal truth of whispered courage, that resilience forged in quiet determination often blazes brightest. Her life, and those of the hundreds aligned in struggle with her, carried the capacity to inspire justice throughout generations, each moment a living testament to the vital energy of focused, collective action. As she leaned into the familiar comfort of her surroundings, Ava felt the embrace of their legacy, the potent reminder that the work ahead was as much about memory as it was about forethought. It was a bridge connecting past battles to future triumphs, a living architecture of endurance and possibility. Her whispered promise intertwined with a growing chorus of voices, moving ever forward, resolute in the phrase that had become their credo, "Together, we redefine the future." As night descended, the city settled into a tranquil hum, its vibrant streets cooled by the promise of coming milestones. Ava stood by her window, overlooking the bustling city, the weight of everything she and her coalition had accomplished flooding through her like a warm, invigorating tide. The view was as much of possibility as it was of responsibility, a reflection of the world she was helping to craft, one heartfelt endeavor at a time. Reports from various corners of the movement painted a picture of tangible progress. New alliances were being forged across state lines, inspired by the groundwork laid locally. Cities were adopting improved oversight measures, supported by first-hand accounts of success from communities like Ava's own, proof that real change was not just theoretical but manifesting before their very eyes. That evening, Ava was due at a gathering meant to solidify recently formed ties between groups traditionally seen as separate entities in the fight for justice: environmental activists, labor unions, educational reformists, and the burgeoning movement Ava and her allies championed. This coalition building was strategic and vital, strengthening their unified push towards systemic reform on an even broader scale. Held in a historic town hall brimming with character, the meeting brought together a diverse array of individuals whose paths to activism were as varied as their causes. Handshakes turned to hugs as introductions exchanged layers of warmth and camaraderie, the groundwork of unity evident in the spark of shared determination. As Ava took her place behind a podium fashioned with symbols of each represented movement, she felt the weight of eyes upon her, cognizant of both the hope and the expectations they carried. It was a mosaic of solidarity, unique pieces locked together in a commitment to their interwoven futures. Each of us stands here today not in isolation, Ava began, her voice amplifying her earnest conviction, but in unison with the power of our shared resolve. We recognize that justice, true, far-reaching justice, knows no bounds and respects no categories. It invites all who strive for equity to not only participate but lead. Her words drew the room's attention like a magnet, pulling focus toward the necessity of interconnected advocacy. Heads nodded as Ava articulated the importance of cross-sector partnerships, understanding that while each cause is distinct, their collective significance strengthens the fabric of equitable society. A gentleman in his 60s, a veteran labor organizer with a lifetime of trials and triumphs etched into his features, raised his voice above the attentive silence. "Our fight is the same," he insisted, his passion rippling through the air. "Injustice against one is injustice against all. By joining forces, we protect not only our interests but our principles." The discussions expanded, weaving through topics of labor rights, environmental justice, and systemic inequities within education and law enforcement. Every conversation yielded layers of insight, each participant contributing unique perspectives that laid the foundation for more comprehensive strategies. Throughout the engaging exchanges, Ava was struck by the remarkable capacity for adaptability and empathy shown by the collective. Perhaps this was their greatest strength, the ability to embrace fluid identities and goals, to recognize that justice required both flexibility and resolve. Following the formal proceedings, clusters of attendees lingered in animated discussions, exchanging contact information and ideas over shared meals and laughter. The night buzzed with the synergy of collaboration, an affirmation of Ava's belief that change stemmed not only from policy but from genuine human connection. As the gathering came to a close, Ava took a moment to stand amidst the lively exchanges, observing the real and immediate effects of their unity. Here were the links forming strong chains, capable of bearing the weight of the change they sought. Walking home later beneath a canopy of stars that seemed to shimmer with implicit promise, Ava reflected on the boundless potential she had witnessed. The movement she represented, once a fledgling idea sparked by indignation and hope, had grown into a thriving testament to what was achievable through shared vision. Once more at her window, she gazed out at the city, the lights and lives flickering with a vibrancy that reminded her of their mission's breadth. Ava took a deep breath, clasping the weighted reality of both how far they had come and how far they still needed to go. She stood there, a silent sentinel bearing witness to all the lives impacted by her rallying cry for justice. The night spoke in whispers, an ongoing dialogue between what had been and what could be chance to carve out a world that lived beyond the scanned words of legislative decree. Ava understood with certainty that they were crafting a legacy beyond her or any one individual, a commitment to a justice that transcends generations, written anew by countless hands and enduring hearts. As sleep enveloped the city, Ava made a quiet vow to herself and to those she fought alongside, to continue, driven by whispers of courage and the spirit of those who joined in song and strength, as long as there was breath in her body and fire in her soul. Together, they would redefine the framework of justice, unyielding in their pledge to cultivate brighter futures. And with each passing dawn, they would take heart in these shared convictions, fortifying the bridges they had built, bridges of trust, unity, and indomitable hope spanning past and future alike. The weeks following the gathering ushered in a new phase of reflection and projection for Ava and her team. Her days were filled with the kind of purposeful energy that ignited movements, even as she navigated the weighty complexity of the justice system's maze. At the forefront of her thoughts lay a question: how to sustain the momentum they had garnered. Ava's journey had been marked by trials and triumphs that forged her into a resilient changemaker. Yet, she knew that evolution required constant learning, a continuous dialogue with history, community, and self. Reflection was not just a pause, but a powerful reckoning with the landscape she and her allies endeavored to reshape. To this end, Ava sought the sanctuary of her apartment one quiet morning, a rare reprieve from meetings and public appearances. With the windows flung open to the whisper of city life beyond, Ava delved into a series of personal recollections, revisiting milestones alongside challenges that had knit themselves into her ongoing narrative. Her small dining table, covered with documents, notes, and mementos bore witness to the movement's progress. Amid these, a particular collection of letters caught her eye, letters from individuals whose faces she often carried in her heart. These messages, penned by those touched by the coalition's efforts, served as a reminder of the personal impact behind the legislative victories and grassroots achievements. Each letter was a story, like a mosaic, capturing the essence of their cause. There was gratitude, yes, but also pleas for continued vigilance, the recognition that systemic reform was an evolving promise, requiring nurturing and unwavering commitment. One letter stood out, its author a young woman named Maya, whose brother had found himself entangled in the justice system's web. Maya expressed profound relief that her community had inspired change, yet she implored Ava and her team to persist. For every voice that echoes today, Maya wrote, countless others still wait in silence for justice. The letter crystallized Ava's resolve, its words a poignant reflection of the road ahead. The movement's achievements were a testament to their dedication, yet Ava understood that the real measure of progress lay in sustained effort and expanded horizons. Her moment of introspection was interrupted by a text from Jade. Brief and charged with urgency, a planned outreach would require Ava's presence. Without hesitation, she prepared to continue the day, Maya's words fueling her with renewed determination. The scheduled outreach involved a series of workshops aimed at deepening community engagement, an embodiment of their commitment to integrate systemic reforms into everyday practice. These sessions, led by Ava and co-facilitated by local community leaders, provided spaces for dialogue, frank, open, often difficult conversations that addressed not just grievances, but the path forward. At the community center where the workshops were held, Ava was welcomed by a diverse group, individuals reflecting a tapestry of experiences woven from various walks of life. They gathered in circles, fostering an environment where every voice held significance, emboldened by the collective understanding that their presence was pivotal to regeneration. The discussions were tangible manifestations of the movement's ethos-sympathy and action intertwined. Ava spoke candidly about the long journey still ahead, the need for inclusive policies and shared commitments she espoused powerfully. Beside her, workshop participants strategized, lent insights, and structured actionable solutions each moment, underscoring their agency. Despite differences in background or perspective, a shared ambition unified those gathered, the creation of a society where justice was equitable and peace sustainable. The energy of the room transformed yearning into motion, a testament to their unity's power and the possibility it incited. As the workshops concluded and people once again dispersed into their lives, Ava felt buoyed by yet another realization. The true strength of their movement lay not just in powerful speeches or rallies, but within the quieter currents of influence, the intimate exchanges where connections deepened and aspirations found roots. Upon returning home, Ava found herself musing upon the cyclical nature of their work, the continuum of every conversation manifesting into aggregates of change. The promise of justice was not static. It was an unfolding narrative written in shared experiences and collective resilience. As night enveloped the city once more, Ava embraced the spaciousness of her thoughts. She remained attuned to each challenge, ready to pivot and adapt alongside her steadfast allies to the world they were diligently reimagining. Their mission remained as expansive as ever, a tapestry of voices and actions harmonizing into an unstoppable force. In this understanding, Ava settled into the quietude of her evening, her heart holding Maya's plea close, propelled by the enduring knowledge that their journey was their legacy, unfolding into a future they were resolute to redeem in all its collective luminous promise. With each sunrise, Ava recommitted to building this vision, guided by her reflections and empowered by the unyielding strength of those who walked beside her in unity. For the story they crafted together was a living monument to the possibility of redefined justice, a pledge to the truth that change, once sparked, flourished through continued dialogue, unwavering resolve, and boundless hope. With each passing day, Ava deepened her involvement in building a broad network that linked various causes into a singular, powerful force for justice. The work was invigorating but also daunting, requiring a delicate balance of bold action and careful planning. Her path led her to unprecedented engagements, reaching into unexpected circles where the need for justice echoed in different yet familiar ways. The promise of reformation fueled her steps, yet Ava was keenly aware that every achievement bore with it the mandate for continuous vigilance. This particular morning, Ava found herself amidst a diverse gathering of activists, city officials, and corporate leaders. An eclectic mix convened to explore cross-sector partnerships that could sustain the momentum of their achievements. The objective was to discuss strategies that could cultivate resources and alliances needed to drive systemic change within public and private realms alike. The meeting space buzzed with anticipation, a collision of worlds where advocacy and commerce intersected. As Ava prepared to speak, she sensed a mix of skepticism and curiosity among the assembly, each faction poised to perceive the conversation through the lens of their respective paradigms. Standing at a podium flanked by representatives from both influential corporations and grassroots organizations, Ava presented the coalition's vision. "We all share a stake in crafting an equitable future," she declared, her voice an even mix of conviction and invitation. "This requires eliminating silos, leveraging collective resources to dismantle barriers that hinder justice." The room held its breath, a moment of confluence where each participant weighed their role within this grand endeavor. Some entrepreneurs nodded with subdued interest, while others whispered among themselves, contemplating the juxtaposition of profit and principle. Ava fostered dialogue that honed in on practical solutions, deftly mediating between seemingly incompatible priorities with her hallmark empathy and pragmatism. Her leadership encompassed not just inspiration but the necessary structuring of viable pathways forward. Through layers of negotiation and collaboration, novel ideas took shape. Proposals envisioning corporate responsibility, intertwined with community empowerment, that highlighted how businesses could act as catalysts for broader societal change. A senior executive from a leading technology company offered insights into using innovation for equitable access to resources, connecting with grassroots objectives in ways that augmented rather than dominated. The exchange illuminated the shared potential of such partnerships, reframing perceptions and unlocking new possibilities. Meanwhile, local government officials discussed the tangible benefits of bolstering community programs that reduce recidivism while promoting education and skill building. This grassroots focus resonated with everyone, the understanding that real change empowered those directly affected by systemic injustice. As discussions unfolded, Ava found herself threading together the disparate elements of their conversation, choreographing a convergence that honored each perspective while maintaining the integrity of their mission. Another voice emerged from the back of the auditorium, a young entrepreneur representing a startup focused on sustainability. Their contribution emphasized how environmental justice linked to social reform, eliciting a broader perspective on interconnected issues within the movement. The dialogue that arose from this exchange was promising, focusing on holistic strategies that embraced complexity while aligned with justice-oriented goals. Ava was heartened by the willingness displayed by influential figures to step beyond comfort zones for the sake of collective progress. The meeting concluded with actionable commitments, a roadmap drawing from each sector's strengths, fostering accountability and ingenuity in crafting an enduring change infrastructure. Participants left with an invigorated understanding of shared endeavor, the resonance of collaboration echoing well beyond the confines of the meeting room. Returning home, Ava mulled over the implications of the day's advances. Their movement's narrative continued to shape itself into an evolving story where justice found allies in unlikely places, transforming into a force that permeated all dimensions of society. With each day, Ava's resolve was renewed by the myriad voices who joined the fight, their collective heartbeat a testament to the power of interconnected activism. The potential of their work seemed limitless, a bastion of hope formed through intention, designed to endure beyond immediate circumstances. Stepping onto her balcony that evening, Ava basked in the city's glowing urban expanse, alive with diversity and aspiration. This mosaic was where calls for justice intersected with the promise of tomorrow, a canvas upon which dreams were painted with each deliberate step toward equality. The stars above seemed to flicker more brightly as Ava considered the task before them, understanding with profound clarity that the legacy they were building belonged belonged not only to the present, but as a gift to future custodians of justice. Their message was simple yet profound. Together, justice could transcend boundaries, drawing strength from the intersections of its many expressions, thriving within a collective vision that included every voice willing to speak, every heart ready to act. In this unity, Ava found validation and affirmation that their movement was more than an aspiration. It was a living testament to the belief that transformative change, no matter how grand the vision, sprouted from seeds of courage and enduring collaboration. The future, she knew, was theirs to shape, bound to their relentless pursuit and immutable promise of a truly just world. Following the profound meeting that had woven a tapestry of purpose across sectors, Ava found herself reflecting on the powerful unspoken bonds that had formed during their journey. These connections, some silent yet palpable, were as crucial to their advocacy as any visible action. They provided an undercurrent of strength, a silent thread that bound them together in mutual understanding and resolve. As the coalition pressed onward, Ava recognized the need to nurture these silent allegiances, to deepen the ties forged through shared struggle and common purpose. This enduring camaraderie was not born from circumstance alone, but cultivated through intentional interaction and genuine empathy. Such bonds, she realized, were vital to sustaining the movement's heart, its ability to adapt, endure, and thrive. An opportunity arose in the form of a retreat, a gathering designed to reinforce the connections that powered their collective heart. Set in the serene landscape of a rural retreat center, the location offered an antidote to the frenetic pace of Advocacia Sanctuary, where quieter conversations could yield profound insights and renewed commitments. The setting, with its expansive natural views and peaceful atmosphere, fostered a sense of tranquility and openness. Ava arrived with anticipation, joining a cadre of activists and leaders, each vital to the movement, each a voice in the chorus that had propelled their mission forward. As they settled into the rhythm of the retreat, Ava facilitated discussions that focused on personal narrative estuaries that reflected their motivations, struggles, and dreams. Through these shared stories, they found solidarity, recognizing the interweaving of experiences that had brought them to this pivotal moment. In one session, Ava encouraged participants to pair up and discuss meaningful moments in their journey's experiences that had shaped their commitment to justice. These exchanges quickly dissolved barriers, revealing layers of shared humanity that unraveled untold stories and aspirations. One participant, a public defender who had often seen the sharp end of judicial inequities, recounted her journey of disillusionment transformed into a clarion call for change. Her voice, though marked by adversity, carried an unwavering conviction that further ignited the resolve in those listening. In response, James shared an account from his military days, a moment of silent defiance against entrenched bias that solidified his belief in the necessity of justice. His honesty resounded through the group, echoed in nods of affirmation and empathy by others who had trodden similar paths. These personal stories wove a fabric of collective identity, an assembly of resilience and shared purpose that transcended individual roles, uniting them in diversity and determination. In the solitude of nature, Ava was reminded of the power tethering each whisper of connection, how a nod or gesture could speak volumes in spaces where words might fail to capture the scope of their journey or the depth of their commitment. Even outside structured discussions, conversations flowed easily among the group, fueled by genuine curiosity and shared discovery. Ava took part in these exchanges, whether informal or profound, and discovered an evocative reaffirmation of their Mashuna reassurance rooted in unspoken understanding. Around a crackling bonfire one evening, as shadows danced in the flickering light, Ava addressed the assembled group, her words woven with gratitude and aspiration. Our commitment to justice is anchored not just in our actions, but in the silent vows we've made to ourselves and each other. These bonds remind us that our strength comes from community, from the courage to stand together regardless of the trials. Her message resonated with a profound simplicity, amplifying the silent resilience that underscored their resolve. The bonds forged that weekend would sustain them, a renewing force that transcended doubt and strengthened their collective path. The retreat concluded in a quiet acknowledgement of the renewed vigor each participant carried back to their respective spheres. These days away had reinforced them with with more than just plans. They had returned with the silent courage drawn from knowing they were never alone, bolstered by the assurance of steadfast allies. As Ava departed, the retreat grounds fading into the distance, she carried with her this immutable truth. Theirs was not merely a network of advocacy, but a community of shared purpose, a lattice of invisible yet robust connections that fortified their mission from within. Her journey, entwined with that of so many others, promised to forge onward as a testament to the power of unity, catalyst driven not just by visible action but by the undercurrents of understanding and silent, profound solidarity. Ava stepped back into the world revitalized, grounded by the knowledge that justice was a journey as much about the connections they nurtured as the causes for which they fought. The bonds built through whispers and warmth would guide them forward, an unbreakable foundation for the world they were unyielding in their drive to create. As the coalition resumed their work with renewed vigor, the world seemed to vibrate with the tensions of progress and resistance, a dichotomy as old as time, yet alive with the urgency of present reckoning. Ava, newly energized from the retreat, was firmly back in the throes of advocacy, her focus sharpened by the unseen but steadfast bonds she and her allies had fortified. Their methods, though varied, were guided by a shared mandate to navigate the complexities of reform with deft precision, ensuring each step forward was purposeful and impenetrable by those resistant to change. The coalition pulled together like a meticulously crafted tapestry, each thread vital, their weave both intentional and encompassing. Today's agenda brought Ava to an important intersection of their efforts, where community leaders were gathering to discuss the city's upcoming review of policing policies. There was an air of cautious optimism surrounding the Mitinga, collective anticipation of progress long overdue. Held in an unassuming municipal building, this congregation was a melting pot of stakeholders, law enforcement representatives, activists, policymakers, and citizens, all seated in careful anticipation for the dialogues that could define their shared future. Each participant embodied both the past struggles and the future promise of their communal endeavor. Ava, positioned at the heart of this assembly, sensed an undeniable urgency to ensure this dialogue bridged gaps rather than solidifying divides. Her speechcraft, honed through countless public engagements, would once again carry the weight of their collective aspirations. As she spoke, Ava drew upon the silent vows of courage as anchors within her. Her words flowed easily, yet bore the gravity of her commitment, reflecting the sincerity of belief that propelled her and the coalition forward. "Our policies must transcend rhetoric," Ava implored, her voice firm and resolute. "True reform lives within the systems we build, shaped by genuine engagement and an unwavering dedication to equity." A hush fell over the room, an expectant silence that signaled readiness to listen, to learn. Ava's address served as a cornerstone, framing their discussions within a context that refused to let passivity become the norm. With the groundwork laid by Ava's assertions, the meeting unfolded into a tapestry of dialogue where voices once marginalized found resonance. From the officers who stepped forward to share their desires for a more transparent system, to the community members whose lived experiences underscored the need for transformation, each contribution added depth to the conversation. Celia, a local educator and active coalition participant, spoke with fervor about the importance of critical race training in schools and law enforcement, recounting firsthand accounts of how empathy had transformed student interactions. Her testimony, the embodiment of the movement's progress, was met with nods from both officials and attendees, a shared acknowledgement of their intent to measure progress in human terms. In response, Inspector Martin, a longtime critic turned advocate, outlined initiatives for increased community engagement, stressing the responsibility officers bore to acknowledge and nurture the trust placed in them by society. "We have much to learn from these exchanges," he admitted, his voice a mix of humility and resolve. "To rebuild trust, we must first reconcile intent with action." The dialogue, reverberating through the enclosed space, underscored the movement's power, its capacity to transform opposing stances into collective resolve. Each shared narrative added to the chorus of empathy, cementing the reality that change, once kindled, need not flicker out but fuel continued momentum toward justice. The day turned to evening, discussions yielding place to quiet reflection. Ava knew these forums represented the crucible in which real and lasting policy reform was crafted. Each measured step forward was a testament to their foresight and collaboration, an offering of hope in a time often overshadowed by skepticism. As the meeting drew to a close, Ava stood amidst the gathering, a still point in the ocean of aspirations and determination that swirled around her. Gratitude filled her for the silent courage of those who dared to dream amidst opposition and challenge, and for the communion of trust that transcended individual missions. In that moment, amid the echoes of conversations she had helped to ignite, Ava felt the promise of the future, palpable and immediate. It was the realization that every effort, every connection nurtured within this coalition, wove a legacy far greater than the sum of its parts, a future defined by the strength of their unity and the principle of justice reborn. Stepping into the cool night air, Ava was mindful of the continuity of their vision. A transformation danced along the horizon, guided by the shared convictions of those bound not by ceremony but by authenticity. The night sky stretched above her, vast and eternal, a testament to both history's shadows and the luminous dawn of tomorrow. In this, Ava found her place, part of an unyielding chorus that would continue to define justice in every corner of their ever-connected world. Her heart carried a distinct harmony, a melody forged in the crucible of struggle and hope, whispering a steadfast promise that their journey and legacies yet unfulfilled would persist as living testimonies to the power of whispered courage and transformative human connection. The culmination of the coalition's efforts arrived with a quiet dawn, spreading tentative light over a city ready to embrace the fruits of their determination. The day felt heavy with promise, as if the air itself vibrated with a newfound density, carrying the weight of all that had been achieved and all that was still possible. Ava woke early, the anticipation coursing through her like an energizing current. Today marked the official unveiling of the landmark legislation, the product of tireless advocacy and the quiet perseverance that had characterized their movement. It was a day meant for celebration and reflection, a time to pause, even briefly, in acknowledgement of what they had collectively set in motion. The ceremony was to be held at the state capitol, set against the formidable backdrop of pillars that had, for too long, held up systems resistant to change. Ava arrived to find the grounds bustling with energy, a tapestry of people supporters and skeptics alike arrayed on the steps that had long symbolized power. As she made her way through the crowd, Ava felt a surge of emotion. The scene before her was both a culmination and a beginning, each face in the crowd representing the chorus of voices that had cried out for justice. Familiar faces greeted her with smiles and nods. Jade, James, and other key players whose whispers of courage had echoed in every corner of this journey. The ceremony began with speeches from lawmakers and community leaders, each one acknowledging the collective struggle that had brought them to this nexus of change. The air was ripe with the solemnity of promises renewed and the fervency of hope restored. When Ava stepped to the podium, applause erupted around her, a tangible wave of appreciation and solidarity. The weight of her words was not lost on her. This was a moment meant to carry the gravity of their shared experience, to honor the past and invest in the future. She began with quiet dignity, her voice resonating across the assembly. Today, we stand not just as witnesses to change, but as creators of it. This legislation is a testament to what is possible when voices converge with purpose and resolve. Ava's eyes scanned the audience, finding recognition in each pair of eyes. Together, we have proven that the whispers of courage, when joined, can rise to a crescendo of action. And this action, my friends, has the power to reshape the narrative of justice for generations. Her words were met with a silence that throbbed with collective introspection, each listener contemplating the journey they had undertaken and the legacies now within reach. As the legislation was signed and the vision of justice expanded beyond the page into reality, Ava felt a profound peace settle within her. The act itself was more than ceremonial. It was a living promise, one shaped by the graceful persistence of those who had dared to hope and push against the boundaries of what was deemed possible. The ceremony concluded with a flurry of connection embraces, handshakes, and tears, mingling in an unspoken acknowledgement of the road traveled together. Yet, despite the celebratory mood, Ava knew their work was far from over. Every milestone represented a new beginning, an ongoing commitment to nurture the reforms they had fought to realize. As the crowd slowly dissipated, leaving behind an echoing whisper of joy and triumph. Ava took a moment to stand in silent reflection. The capital loomed behind her, a symbol of power that had now absorbed the spirit of their cause, testament to the resilience ingrained within its enduring history. Ava's thoughts drifted to the whispered courage that had started it all, the quiet defiance that had grown into a movement not consigned to momentary triumph but defined by the relentless endurance of its mission. It was a legacy passed from one heart to another, humming with the promise of renewal and connection. Walking down the steps, Ava turned briefly, casting one last glance at the Capitol, the beacon of their labor. It stood firm and unyielding, not in opposition, but now as a monument to change. The future felt open and uncharted, but was alive with possibility and the steady beat of progress. In the solitude of the moment, Ava was joined by Jade and James, their presence a reminder that this was not the journey of any one individual, but a shared path shaped by every soul who had dared to imagine differently. Together, they stepped forward, looking ahead to a horizon tinted with the glow of potential. And so, with every stride, Ava carried the whispers of courage within her heart, living testament to the unbreakable bonds of community, the enduring power of hope, and the transformative promise of a world made anew through collective action. As they moved toward the crowd now merging with the city's rhythm, Ava pondered the ever-evolving landscape of justice, knowing that their adventure was far from complete. In its complexity and beauty lay an invitation and invocation for all to join, to witness, and to shape the future they had dared to hope for. The question remained, what legacy will you leave in your wake? Will you too become a whisper that shifts the tides of change? Your journey begins now. Please consider sharing your thoughts, lending your voice to the chorus of change, and subscribing to continue following stories that inspire action.